Hey, what's up, guys? If you've been following me for a while, you know I'm a huge fan and supporter of Firecracker Farm. Alex, the owner, is not only an incredible human being, but he makes an incredible product. And that is why we could not be happier that they are sponsoring the Shoot Me Straight podcast. Each guest, when they come in, will get a sample of Firecracker Farm so they can take it back and enjoy. And I can tell you, to each person that we've given it to, they have not been disappointed. You can put these, put this salt on your favorite food, favorite beverage. I've even seen people put it in their coffee. They love it. There's an assortment of heat, so if you don't like it too hot, they definitely have that taken care of with some mild flavors. And then it goes all the way to extreme heat if you like to sweat. So if you guys are interested in purchasing some, go to firecracker.farm. All right, thank you for listening, and God bless. All right, welcome back to Shoot Me Straight with Eddie and Dave. This week we have an awesome guest, Daniel Cole. Daniel and I met, when was that? It was
April.
in April,
Yeah.
in Kansas, right? I was helping out instruct one of the GBRS courses, and you were up there as one of the students up there learning how to shoot, and we ended up talking.
Yep.
And you have a really interesting and awesome story. So we ended up configuring a way for you to come down here, and you brought your lovely wife with you, which is awesome. She's sitting up there in the corner. But you definitely have a very good, interesting story, and just from where you were to where you are now. And I think it's will definitely be awesome for the listeners to hear. And plus, just your mindset and everything is exemplary. So I think the listeners will get a lot out of it.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I'm super happy to be here. Glad we hooked up.
Yeah, we had a good day today. We ended up going shooting a little bit, a couple hours. So got up, worked out, went and shot, and now we're doing a podcast. So you can't really, no complaints.
Yeah, like I said, I could put this day on repeat.
Yeah.
Woke up, beach, rode the bike, gym, lunch.
That's the 30A life.
Flat range. Yeah.
It
nice.
doesn't really change when you move down here. That's pretty much it.
That's tempting.
Yeah, I used to vacation here some.
Yeah, my wife had, so we actually found out about 30A from my wife. She kind of had some distant relatives that she reconnected with back in 2014.
Okay.
And we actually were in Pensacola, and we met up with them like halfway, and they said, hey, we have a condo in Seagrove. And so we ended up hitting it off with the family. We came out here, but that was when we were first exposed to the 30A area.
Nice.
And we've never gone to another beach since we got exposed to this area. This is where we
Yeah.
So when me and Eddie were talking, and he said he lived here, I said, that's perfect. Like, you can't make it up.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's awesome.
this area we've been frequenting for 7-8 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where are you originally from?
I'm originally I was born in Memphis, Tennessee, but grew up in northeast Arkansas. So it's kind of like a tri-state area. You got like Missouri, Tennessee. Memphis is the closest airport to us. And it's about an hour and 20 minutes, away. But yeah, originally from northeast Arkansas, and went to college in northeast Arkansas before I moved to Texas and kind of started my law enforcement.
Which college?
Arkansas State
Okay.
University. Yeah, I got a degree in psychology and business management.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I didn't, when I first went to college, like, I actually didn't want to go to college at first. Like, I was kind of in a hurry to want to join the workforce, and I didn't think college was going to be the route. And then my goal had always been federal law enforcement.
Okay.
And I realized real quick, like, to get into that, I was going to have to go the college route.
Yeah.
Especially because, 9/11 had happened.
Do they require a degree?
They do now.
Okay.
Almost as a prerequisite for almost any federal agency at this point. I think U.S. Marshals is one of the only federal agencies that doesn't necessarily require, but they're very paramilitary, so they're bringing a lot of guys in, from coming out from experience. But most federal agencies at this point have a prerequisite of some version of a degree. Now, like when I went through, they were really heavy on like being a linguist, being an attorney, being in like IT, software engineering, or what they called the diversified program. So because I wasn't any of the other three, like my avenue was diversified, which is kind of a catch-all. So I thought psychology would be a good route. Graduated with psychology, and then actually interviewed with the FBI about 3 months before I graduated. And so the idea at the time for the diversified program was you graduate, come out and you do about 3 years of postgraduate law enforcement experience. But for the FBI specifically, you really needed to have detective or investigative experience. So it's really more than 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, you don't just go into law enforcement and start off as
No, you got to work your way up to
exactly,
detective, right?
So that was kind of the original pathway. And I ended up, well, in the FBI I went with the U.S. courts, but that was kind of the original.
Got
the
you.
original pathway.
What was the drive like when you were a child to like want to become a FBI agent?
You know, it was really, it was just kind of like an instinct, natural. We were kind of drawn. My brother and I both were kind of drawn to the concept of good versus evil. You know, we didn't really grow up in church, but we believed in God. We just didn't really understand necessarily the relationship of like Christ, the Holy Spirit, and God. Like
You raised Catholic?
no, not raised Catholic. No,
Okay.
not raised Catholic. It was, I mean, my father, had gone to church as a child. I guess you would say he was probably like a Baptist.
Okay.
They really didn't. Essentially, what happened with him and my mom, my birth mom died when I was 3 months old. My dad remarried when I was a year and a half. She had already had a daughter, so they got married. They each adopted. My mom adopted me. My dad adopted her. And then they had my brother. So my brother is the one who's got a little bit of all of us.
Yeah.
But they both they went to church when they were younger together. But essentially, I think what happened was they had some bad experiences in church, which you hear a lot of.
It can happen.
And I think his good, right, wrong. Their idea was, we don't want to expose you to doctrine or like be indoctrinated by what someone thinks. We're just gonna let you kind of figure it out on your own.
Yeah.
So it was like, as you get older, you're gonna figure out the path that you want to take, type thing. And so, but yeah, didn't grow up in church. But my grandfather had served in World War II. He was a World War II pilot, and then got kicked over to the Army whenever they didn't need pilots. But his brother had served. He was killed in the Pacific in World War II. And then my uncle,
Was he a Marine?
uncles, he was a pilot as well.
Pilot?
Air Force. Yeah,
Okay.
he died in aerial combat. And then both of my uncles served in Vietnam. One was in Vietnam, one was in Korea. My dad didn't serve. The story was he was on his way out of high school, and at the time, both of his brothers were in active war, and my grandparents were kind of like, dude, if we have all three sons at war right now, I don't think we can handle it.
That's
So
like a Saving Private Ryan
that's
situation.
exactly right. And my grandfather actually was the Saving Private Ryan scenario. So both of his brothers were killed in combat, and the day, so he got discharged from the Army because he was the last remaining Cole. Like, our bloodline exists because of him. They pulled him out, and a week later, his entire battalion or group went to the Battle of Bulge, and every single person died.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So my dad, and I think because my dad didn't serve, but everybody, like his dad and both his brothers did, I think he was kind of fascinated with the military. It was very important for us that we knew the history, and so we kind of grew up idolizing guys in the military and the idea of protecting and serving. And I remember getting to, we were really young. It was before I was even in school. I was maybe kindergarten or first grade, and at the time we were living in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and like the neighborhood, that was back when kids played the neighborhood all the time, and the parents were involved, and you could chase the ice cream truck down the street and stuff. And there was a bully up the street, John David was his name, and I can't remember exactly how it played out, but we got into a huge fight. Like everybody, like all the kids got into a huge fight, and he was picking on my friend, and so the parents come out, and now the parents get into a fight, and it becomes like this huge it became like
It's like a
huge,
neighborhood brawl.
Yeah, it was a neighborhood ordeal.
Yeah.
And I remember afterwards, my parents sitting me down, and about as young as I can remember having something spoken to me that just resonated with me. And they sat me down and they said, listen, they were basically telling me they were proud of me because I was taken up for someone. And they said, listen, that when it comes to fighting, when it comes to, combat, whatever, we don't want you to be a person that's looking for it and going to try to create issues. But if you have to step in to help somebody, we never want you to not be, we never want you to be afraid to do it.
We don't want you to hesitate.
And they told me at a young age, this is straight from Scripture, they're like, the best thing you can do is lay down your life for someone else. And they said, if you ever come across someone that's in need and it costs you your life, don't be afraid to do it. And that just sank right into my heart. And I mean, that's just, so it was kind of always a part of me. And my brother was the same way.
Yeah, that's a heavy lesson to put on, like a child, but it's a good one.
It is,
It's
and I'm very thankful for it. But yeah, I mean, it kind of set, in a lot of ways, a path of, me and my brother, we grew up, like, our family grew up, I wouldn't say we're poor because I've seen poor. Mm-hmm. If you think about the American standard of wealth, we were a couple notches above having to have school lunches paid for. We were, it was a single. My dad was a banker. He worked in the bank and he made decent money, but there was 5 of us. My mom didn't work, and it was just tough to make ends meet. We actually lived. I think the saving grace for me and my brother, honestly, was we grew up on 80 acres of land that was owned by my grandfather, and it's where my dad grew up. So like I think if we would have been in a neighborhood and there would have been kids around, like I might have ended up in the juvenile system. You know what I mean? Like at a young age.
Yeah.
We were pretty like the woods were what we needed. We kind of ran around and got to do whatever we wanted. But I mean, we played sniper games. At 10 years old, 14 years old, we'd make our own ghillie suits, and he'd start on one end of 80 acres, and I'd start on one, and these would go on for 4 and 5 days. We'd have cap guns. And we'd have our starting point, and we'd work all day long, and we had, like, at a certain point of darkness, we would mark our spot, and we would come back and meet up, and then we would start back there the next day. And so we would do these 4 and 5 day games.
That's some dedication.
It was, and it's 98 degrees, 100 degrees outside. This is in the summer, you know, so it was just kind of always in us, man.
That's cool, man. Yeah, it's always boys being boys.
Yep. Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, as far as you know, like you said, the FBI, like being a federal officer. I mean, I think, you know, you think of law enforcement and what I was exposed to as far as television, movies. You know, in my mind, a federal agent, all you know about is FBI, maybe a little bit of Secret Service, a little bit of DEA. But in my mind, that was the pinnacle of what law enforcement looked like. So that's just what I shot for, like in my mind.
Was Keanu Reeves in Point Break? Was that like a?
Oh yeah, I'm glad
I
you
am
brought
a
that up.
federal agent.
Yeah. And was it Bodie?
Bodie.
Yeah.
I mean, that character was almost cooler than Keanu Reeves' character.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that whole movie. That whole movie's awesome.
Oh, it's a great movie. I may watch that movie tonight, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was definitely a movie that I was drawn
Yeah.
to as a kid.
That's a great one. So you obviously knew at an early age you wanted to do something where you're protecting, individuals or people in this country. Was the military ever like in consideration?
Yeah, it was. It's actually kind of a funny story. So I was in either my freshman or sophomore year of college, and I showed up to college, you know, the day that the attacks happened, and it was weird. The professor didn't show up, and he was always on time. He was kind of a stickler, and so we're sitting there, and we see somebody says, "Hey, you know, we're under attack," and everybody starts talking. Like a student aide comes in and writes on the board, like, "Hey, class is canceled," and also they're shutting down the campus, and so like all this stuff starts kind of unveiling itself. And I mean, it was a pivotal time, and I was 20 years old, maybe 19 years old, and so at Arkansas State University, there's I believe Army ROTC, and so I think my third year of college, the idea was I was going to go into Army intelligence. So I showed up 3 different times to take the ASVAB at college, like where they had everything set up, and every time I showed up, somebody had done something, like there was something wrong. Meaning, like somebody forgot the tests. Then I show up the next time, like it was like a failure on the
I
person
gotcha.
doing it. Right? This was like a failure, and I was in a lot of ways, I think, wanting to sign up out of emotion, like a lot of people. Like emotional.
Oh, there's a lot of that going on.
I mean, it was, and I just felt like it was the right thing to do, especially with like my family's background in the military, and ultimately that the third time that I went, because I was frustrated because I'm ready to get this process done, like I'm ready to like do something, and after that third time, when we show up and it's like another person and they've had another issue, meaning we couldn't take the test, we couldn't do anything, they're having to reschedule it for another time. I just kind of sat back and was like, am I supposed to be doing this? Like, is this the path that I'm supposed to do?
Yeah. Or is God telling me something?
Exactly. So I kind of stopped, and, you know, we can talk about kind of my introduction to Christianity a little bit, but I was pretty early. I was a young Christian at the time, and so I was very still much in the attitude of, this seems like a good thing to do, let me make it happen, versus kind of stepping back and praying and listening, like basically learning to trust your peace. Like, do you have peace about this? Is this what you're actually supposed to do?
Yeah.
And ultimately, I kind of got to the point where, okay, this isn't the path, even though it's kind of what I want it to be. It's supposed to be something different, and then I ended up going, you know, the law enforcement route. But very close.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was very close.
I figured just from what you said, you know, in your past and like how your father, like, you know, not idolized, but respected the people in the military. And you guys raised you to respect people that, you know, raise their right hand to defend this country.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know how it is in the military. I mean, preaching to the choir here. It's like, if I would have got just a little bit further down the process, I wouldn't have had a choice. Like, it would have been. Oh yeah. I mean, I was ready to run with it. You know? I'd already told my mom didn't want me to do it. She was upset. My dad was like, hell yeah, son. You know, and,
yeah.
The girl I was with at the time was a little agnostic. She was like, I don't think she really knew what to think, but she knew I was going to do ultimately what I felt was
what you wanted to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you graduated college, did you go right to the police academy?
No, so the person I was with at the time in college got accepted to Baylor Law School, and so I had an interview with the FBI. Originally, that was the plan, was the FBI, and so we graduated, and she wasn't going to be starting law school for like 9 months, and so I just had to get a law enforcement job. So I had missed applying for the Waco PD, like police, like the standard. I think they did tryouts a couple times a year, and so I actually went and interviewed for juvenile probation, like the detention, so like the juvenile detention center, like the jail. I interviewed to just be a random officer, like just to start. I just needed a starting point. I
Yeah,
needed a job.
like a guard.
Yeah,
or
we
something.
had to move. Yeah, we had to move there, so I needed a job. So I actually went and interviewed for that, and they called me back and said, "Will you come back and interview for a supervisor position before I started?" So I actually entered into the law enforcement career, supervising people that had been doing it for 20 years.
Oh wow.
And
How'd that go over?
it actually went really well.
Yeah?
Yeah. I just talked to a guy the other day that I supervised. He's good friends, Douglas, Anthony Douglas, but he, some of those guys I was very, very close to. I felt like I had a couple good leadership instructors, like in college, that actually prepared me, for what are you going to do when you get out of school and you have a piece of paper and you walk into a job and you got people that have been doing this for 30 years. And now you're supposed to tell them what to do and supervise them. Like, how do you gain their trust? And so I actually had a pretty good playbook of how to do that.
That's awesome. They
And so
set
I
you
walked
up.
in, within 3 or 4 months, man, I couldn't. It was hard to be the first person in the cell. Those guys didn't want anything to happen to me. I mean, I was, they kind of called me Captain America because I was just, always wanted to be on them. But my whole thing was, I'll never ask you to do anything that I wouldn't do. And instead of coming in and telling them what to do, I came and was like, hey guys, I got to get up to speed. Like, I'm relying on your experience to help me get up to speed. Like, I make the commitment to you that I'm going to get. I was like, I'll be able to do your job just as good or better one day. I said, but I'm not there, and I need your help to get there. And my whole goal, like, I'm committed to you guys. So at an early age, I was able to kind of develop a team and rally a team and inspire them. But really, man, it's servant leadership.
Yep.
That's the key. That's the key. Yeah, I have relationships with those guys to this day.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because that's a tough gig, getting put in a spot where now it's like, hey, you're in charge, and oh, by the way, everybody you're in charge of has been doing this when you were picking boogers out of your nose, 5th grade, and so that's something you got to sort of tread lightly. Come in and, like you said, it's yes, I'm in charge, and the only reason I know this is because this is what officers face a lot of the times in the military. Yeah. Where you'll have an officer graduate from whatever academy, and then, hey, guess what? Now you're in charge of these grown men who've been in the military, who've been fighting war for 15 years, and now you're expected to lead them. And the best ones that I've seen that come in are ones that are humble enough to be like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. Like, I'm in charge, but I'm relying on you guys. Whatever you guys need, I will provide.
That's exactly right.
I ask you to help me get up to speed as well, and you will gain such trust in just being that vulnerable with those guys. They're like, okay, you're not coming in here with an attitude. You're one of us, and we'll show you the way.
Yeah. And they were happy to pour into me. I mean, once they saw that I was open to it and I wasn't coming in, and they had that. I mean, those jobs are rotating, man. They'll have someone for a certain amount of time. They get run off.
Yeah.
So they're like, we'll see.
Exactly.
We'll see. But my whole career I've been fairly successful at being able to come in and rally troops around. And
how was that job at the juvie? I mean, because you're dealing with obviously juveniles.
Yeah, it was, man. I think for anyone doing law enforcement, I think everyone should have to work in the jail for like a year to 2 years. You learn so much about how people communicate and how to communicate on the street, nonverbal. It's just like a whole different world. And when you're in jail, it's like you're in jail with them. I mean, it was very there was no windows anywhere. I mean, it's just like the staff member you're trying to have is one staff, one officer for every, we'll say 16 to 30. We'll say kids. Those were some big kids. It's like we're housing anywhere from 6 years old to 18-year-olds. But you got murders in there. Katrina had happened, so we had a ton of murderers that had come into this.
Jeez, yeah.
So it was different, but yeah, it was, for me, it was a huge transition because I had come from a town that was predominantly white, and I get to Waco. So not only am I moving to a brand new area, I have no social networks there. I'm starting a brand new career, so it's entry into law enforcement. So there's a big learning curve there.
Yeah.
And then here I am supervising people that have been doing the job. So it was like, no matter how you look at it, it was a lot to take on.
Drinking through a fire hose, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
How long were you there for?
So I was with McLennan County I was a supervisor for about a year and a half. And then I ended up promoting into being an actual juvenile probation officer. So I had a caseload and was on the streets I was a specialist. I got hired on with the feds in August of 2011. So I started with them in 2006. So I was essentially there from 2006 to 2011.
Okay, so you did a good chunk of time.
Oh yeah, it was close to 5 years. I still, man, if I missed out on like 80 grand. So like I was really close to being vested, and I left like what I was able to make as a federal officer. It's like I had an option of coming on a little bit later, and I would have like got some money from the county because they had a really good retirement program, and I was just shy of being vested and having like just 80 grand handed to me. And I ended up, I was in such a hurry to like start my career federally that, you know, and it paid off in the end, I think, like overall. But
Yeah.
I still kind of look back sometimes. I'm like, man, 6 more months, 80 grand, like that. Probably.
But then you would have stayed there, right?
Yeah, it would have kicked off. You know, it was a several month process to get on with the feds.
Okay.
It's a several month process. I had to go to San Antonio. I had to do multiple testing, and you got the background checks, the medical, and I think the whole process was probably 6 to 7 months.
Okay.
Before I actually got stationed.
What's that like getting in? I picture Al Pacino like circling letters on a newspaper and handing it to you. What's the process of getting in federally?
Well, so that's a great question, and I was talking to Eddie about this earlier. You know, from Hollywood, like I didn't realize how there's literally hundreds of jobs of being a federal officer, but you only really know about FBI, DEA, maybe a little bit about the ATF. That's mainly just because they screwed stuff up in Waco.
Yeah.
But you know, there's I didn't realize. So backtrack, when I was in Texas, when I started my career there, law enforcement career, my goal was still the FBI. So at the time, they were teaching Hapkido as like a base curriculum in the FBI, and it just so happened that one of the instructors or one of the supervisors that had just left the detention center, which was my first guy I got my black belt from, David Hill. He's just a beast of a man. You know, he had fought in the first UFCs, like first 2 or 3 UFCs. He was a professional kickboxer. Like when I met him, he had been retired for several years, was still getting a check from Adidas every month, like still getting sponsorships. And so
Nice.
he was a black belt in Hapkido, black belt in jiu-jitsu. And I was like, hey man, I'm trying to go in the FBI. You know, I'd love to get some training just because I wanted to get like a leg up. And I started training with him, and it turned out that martial arts made a lot of sense to me.
Did you guys do Hapkido?
We did. Yeah, I ended up getting a black belt in Hapkido, but it's
Oh,
not,
really?
Yeah, but if you look up Hapkido,
The art of breaking bones?
Yeah, well, if you look up Hapkido right now, that's not the style of Hapkido we did. Like he was a fighter. You know, I mean, I went through a small route of almost being an MMA fighter. Like I was really close. I was testing. I had the skill set to do that, and I had the brain to do it. I'm glad I didn't because my body wouldn't have held up. You know, it wouldn't have been a good career. But
I took Hapkido when I lived in Korea.
oh yeah, awesome.
For 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're very familiar.
I'm familiar with it. Yeah. It's I mean it when I was little taking it, I was like, dude, this is legit because every move is about breaking somebody's bones or
it's a brutal martial
Yeah.
art if what you're applying, if you can apply it.
done correctly.
The problem with it, and for me, like my Hapkido, it's your wrist locks and joint locks and all that. Like jiu-jitsu functionalized all of my martial arts.
Yeah.
Like once I got into jiu-jitsu, I think that's what's missing from traditional Hapkido training is just like, yeah, this is brutal if you can pull it off against a resisting opponent.
Yes.
And my head coach, because he had fought MMA, he was a kickboxer. I remember him telling me, he's like, listen, I'm going to train you to fight first. Like you need to be able to fight. You go to a lot of these old school traditional martial arts, and those guys do everything but fight, right?
Yeah.
They train in unrealistic training environments, and they're training without real resistance. Nothing's pressure tested, and people are walking around with black belts on with.
Because they can perform the steps correctly.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
They got a good memory, but nothing's been pressure tested, and they've really been. He saw that. Master Hill saw that, and so he's like, hey, that's not how my students are going to be. So he made me fight first. I mean, it was pretty brutal. I mean, we did. And everybody I trained with outweighed me by like 100 pounds, except for one guy named Jason Nearing. But, we dug deep into it. So his whole thing was like, before I teach you wrist locks, if somebody grabs you with 2 hands, if somebody puts 2 hands on you, punch them in the face with the other hand.
Yeah.
like real practical stuff.
Yeah.
And then we started getting into the art of, because like a wrist lock is like a tertiary thing. If you and me are about to fight, and you're thinking, it's like in a fight, whoever does the simplest thing the fastest is going to win. If I'm thinking I'm going to try to wrist lock you, and you're thinking the first chance I get, I'm going to hit you in the chin, like I'm already setting myself up for failure.
Yeah.
So his whole thing was making sure that I was let's make sure you can fight first and you know what a fight feels like, number one. Number two, we'll get into all the tertiary, like secondary and tertiary skill sets.
Gotcha.
So, but to answer your question, like the kind of roll around was while I got my black belt, my first black belt from him, and I started teaching classes. Well, George Bush Jr. was the president at the time. And so, he lived in Dallas, but he had a ranch in Waco. You guys remember him going to Waco or Crawford, Texas?
Yeah.
So the agents that protected him, one of his detail, they had a main office there in Waco, where I lived. And it just so happened that those guys trained at the gym that we taught out of. So we were teaching out of it was like primarily a fitness center, like it was called WRS. But Master Hill, being an employee there, also rented out some of the spaces. And so he would kind of put us on display when we were training. And people, that's kind of how he started building he had a good little lucrative business going for a while. But I was teaching him, and I ended up teaching some kiddos. And one of the kids I was training, his dad was Mark Childers, who was the primary agent protecting Bush. And I remember looking over one day, and he's like practicing the moves that I'm teaching the kids, because I taught the kids the same thing I taught adults. Like it wasn't, it's like it is what it is. Like this is the martial art we're teaching.
Yeah.
And he comes up to me afterwards, and he's like, "Hey man," he's like, "I noticed like the stuff that you're teaching my kids, like that looks legit." I said, "Oh yes sir." So he asked to do a private lesson with me. I ended up doing a private lesson with him, and then I started training him from that point on. And then he was kind of recruiting me because he wanted me in the Secret Service. I was doing the FBI testing, and I ended up not doing either one of them. But your question was, how does the recruitment happen?
Yeah.
It really is pretty different now. Outside of, I think, the CIA, you pretty much see where you want to go, and unless you have someone that you're directly connected that's trying to pull strings and help refer you, you pretty much figure out where you want to go and start the application process. I mean, it's not. There's definitely some recruitment that does happen, but it's not like what you see in the movies.
So it's like you apply for a specific job with.
That's exactly right. Like the majority of jobs in the FBI, for example, aren't being a special agent. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't know this. The FBI agents don't even do the majority of their surveillance. They have a civilian program. There's civilians that do the majority of their surveillance operations and collect intel on some of their packages. Yeah, which was interesting to find out. But yeah, so with the U.S. courts, which is who I ended up going with, U.S. probation, pretrial services. So you've got you got the executive branch, and you have the Department of Justice, and under the Department of Justice, you have the U.S. court system, and when you think about federal agencies that are really connected to that, you've got the U.S. courts, and then you've got the U.S. Marshals. So ultimately, our ultimate judge was the federal judges appointed by the president, and they're appointed for life. So each district. So you have every state is broken into a certain amount of federal districts, depending on their size. State of Arkansas, which is where I resided, was broken in. Well, at the time I was living in Texas, but I applied for Arkansas. The reason I didn't want to do the FBI or Secret Service was ultimately you don't really have a choice in where you're stationed. They tell you where you're going to go. And I wanted to have a little bit more control over where I lived and where I did business. So when I found out about U.S. probation and parole, I was like, oh, this is awesome. I can actually apply, be a federal officer, and kind of stay within at least a general area. And I was from eastern Arkansas, so I was like, man, it'd be nice if I could serve in the area, like the community that I grew up in, if that makes sense. Because I was protected and serving in Waco, but I didn't really have any ties there outside of, having moved there. Because the girl I was with, we had split. And so I stayed there just because of the training I was doing at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. So with the courts, the way it works is you apply to the federal jurisdiction that you want to work in. Now, once you're in, you can transfer districts and all of that. But that's how it worked for this one. So I actually applied for a federal officer role within the Eastern District of Arkansas.
Okay.
Yeah, when that came up.
Well, the federal judge stuff has been contentious lately.
Yeah.
That it's lifelong.
Yeah, it becomes
They're
very
saying,
political.
Hey,
yeah.
it needs to be. There needs to be term limits.
Oh yeah. Because
they blocked a lot of Trump stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's in any position where there is no term limits, or you're stuck in that position for a long time, and you have a lot of power.
Yeah.
We're all humans, and that can get to you very easily.
You know how you joke around and you say like, oh, it would take it takes an act of Congress to do something. Like it would take an act of Congress to like remove a judge.
Yeah.
So I can give you an idea of what it's like.
Yeah.
Like what it would be like.
Your federal judge that you were under, did you like?
We had multiple judges, so each district has like several judges that will rotate on the circuit, and they'll take turns being the chief judge. I think they do like 7-year stints. For the most part, I liked most of the judges that we worked with. You definitely had some that were tough. The very I hate to say the word narcissistic because it's thrown around so much, but it's very much, you know, that you can tell they're appointed by life.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of times I see this with doctors too. Like now that I do some work in the medical field too. It's like you get to a certain level and all of a sudden you're an expert in everything.
Yeah.
And so
And
I've seen it.
your ego can't let you be vulnerable enough to be like, oh, I don't know the answer to that, or I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah,
They'll just come up with one because they think that they have to.
That's exactly right. Like I've been in federal court before where a judge was interrupting the defense attorney, the prosecuting attorney, the expert witnesses. Like he just kind of took over and did everyone's role for them. You know,
Yeah.
that's not your job. Like you're the judge. But I mean, it got like heated because it was a very high profile attorney. So I mean, they were yelling at each other. I mean, it was. I've seen some pretty crazy stuff in federal court.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I enjoyed the judges that I worked with.
What'd you do? Like, what'd your job look like?
So with U.S. probation and parole, it's one of the hardest federal agent jobs that exists, and most people don't know about it. And the reason it's so tough is you have to be so skilled at multiple things. So you think of someone's indicted, right? Someone's indicted, and you got someone on pretrial. A lot of people don't realize like you can't just bail yourself out like local like if it's a state. You know, you'll see people get $1 million bond, $2 million bond. The only bond you have in federal court, it only exists like you can't pay a certain amount. The judge makes that decision based off of whether you're a flight risk or risk to the community. That's it. So like the Diddy stuff. Like with Diddy, that became a federal court case. I think they kept him detained the entire time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no. I mean, he's got plenty of money. Like there was no like chance to spend money to get out of that. So we were dealing with folks that have been indicted for a crime, but haven't been found guilty yet. And then you're dealing with folks that have been to prison, federal prison. They've been convicted, and then they've been released to the community. So they've been given, they called it community supervision. Some people are on for life. Some people are 5 years, 10 years. And they have court orders of what they can and they can't do. Obviously they can't do drugs. They have to go to counseling. They have to have a job. There's, depending on the specifics of that person, what their crime was, what the integration in the community looks like. So you're dealing with that. You got pretrial folks that you have to be impartial with, right? It's like, we're not dealing with whether you're guilty or not. We're dealing with the fact you've been released to the community based on these orders, right?
Kind of dealing with the entrance and the exit.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. Yes.
Possibly coming in.
Yep. Yeah, so they're in the system. They haven't been convicted yet, but they've been released based on a very specific. A lot of guys are released on like ankle monitors. Yeah. And so I ended up specializing running our sex offender program. So I was always dealing with the high sex offender cases or the most really the most violent guys. I was a specialist for a while before I was a supervisor. So, but yeah, you've got the post conviction side. So you've got officers that are dealing with people who got out of prison. And I mean, you're dealing with every federal crime you can imagine, right? They're out in the community now. I mean, you can't just keep people in prison forever. So they get released, and so now you've got a caseload, let's say, of 50 to 60 folks. And part of what's so difficult about this job is you have to report to the court and report to the judge when that person's violating. Well, people are violating their probation and parole all the time.
Yeah.
That was like eye-opening to me when I first got in, like how much it was happening, and like to have like a revocation, to take someone back. There were some very specific things like committing a new violent crime, testing positive for drugs over a certain amount of time and certain amount of times and within a year or whatever it is. There were definitely certain things that were like mandatory revocation, but then you had all this gray area where you've got a caseload of people that are all breaking the law. And they're all not doing what they're supposed to be doing, but you're having to react to what these people are doing. So every time, like you couldn't get a report done to send to the court. We called them 12 alphas. It's like, oh, don't mess up. We'll send the 12A to the court. But it was basically just a report on like, hey, here's everything this girl or guy is doing that's violating their probation. Here's what you need to be on. Like, here's what we're trying to do to here's how we're dealing with it. Here's like what we're doing within our authority too. But so you had that aspect of the job where there's a ton of reporting because these guys are always violating. You guys are familiar with the NCIC, the National Crime, the FBI, the National Crime Information Center.
Yeah.
It's like we've got these guys in. So if any law enforcement officer anywhere in the country runs these guys' name, we get a hit on our phones.
It'll pop.
Yeah, and so you're having to constantly monitor that. Of course, we have certifications. Normal law enforcement certifications you have to keep up: carrying a gun, carrying handcuffs, carrying OC. But then you had to have all the certifications. We had to be good at post-conviction risk assessments, pre-trial risk assessments. It was one of those jobs where you couldn't hyper-focus on one thing. You had to be really good at a ton. We talked about that.
Yeah,
in the
jack of all
teams.
trades,
Yes,
master of none. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And so there's a ton of field work involved, right? So depending on the risk level of the person, I mean, because what you're trying to do is prevent further crime. You're dealing with people that 100% have committed crimes or that have been,
Convicted.
yeah, or have been indicted for it. But we'll talk about post-conviction right now. You're dealing with a group of people, and you have their entire pre-sentence report. Like when someone goes to the federal system, you know a ton about their entire life. Like they do a deep dive. So we have this thing called a pre-sentence report. So when they're getting out of prison, you're starting the integration process and getting a plan together. Like first, you have to prove where they're going to live. They have standards of like who they can live. Like certain people, you can't live within a certain distance of a school or with
Yeah.
Depending on the
You
crime.
did a lot of sex.
Oh,
you said
yeah.
a lot of sex offenders.
Yeah, and I
they
dealt with
have
the sex offender program, so that was really hard trying to integrate them back in. So you're responsible for trying to help integrate people back into society, but at the same time, you're also law enforcement holding them accountable if they're not.
Yeah.
And then you're the middle of this wheel, this huge wheel of the federal government when it comes to the court system, where you're dealing with the defense attorneys, the U.S. attorneys, or the prosecuting attorneys. You're dealing with the court. You're dealing with their family. You're dealing with their kids. You're dealing with the counselors. You're dealing with them. You're dealing with other local law enforcement, and you're the center point of all of that information. And so you're having to coordinate a ton, and that's just for one person. So if you got a caseload of 50 people, and
So it's
you're
just your phone pinging all the
Oh.
time.
you can ask my wife. It was just
Did you ever like form any good relationships with post conviction? Like, hey, like you really are like, dude, I want to help you, and you form a
Yeah.
relationship with them.
That's a
and
great question.
Yeah.
Absolutely, the answer is absolutely. I mean, there were people we dealt with that were very relatable. Like they could sit here and do this podcast and be very interesting.
Yeah.
There's, I would say 65 to 70% of most people, we'll say 65 to 70% of people that are convicted of a federal crime, when they get out, they're going to complete their supervision successfully, whether we were involved or not,
Yeah.
right? But you think about like the bell curve. We'll say when you think of all crime that's committed, from a traffic, like from a parking ticket to murder, kidnapping, whatever you can think of the worst thing, 10 to 12% of all crime is really, really high level violence, right? So it's actually a small percentage of all crime that's really, really, really violent. So the idea is you're really trying to focus the majority of all the folks that are on your caseload. You're trying to put as much energy into the most, the people who are the highest risk to recidivate and who are going to probably do the most damage.
Yeah.
But through that process, so I guess your point is, because 70% of folks are probably going to be successful because they learned their lesson, they successfully are going to come back in. It's really cool to see them change their lives.
Yeah.
It's very, very rewarding. The job was, traditional law enforcement. When you think about like the executive branch, FBI, DEA, ATF going in and busting down the doors, and they've done an investigation. They take people down. It's like, good job, handshake, on to the next thing. Well, that's just the beginning. That's just the beginning. Like the person hasn't even been convicted yet, right? It's just the beginning of the crime. They entered the system. Then you have this, you have this huge responsibility of how do we get this person successful again, and that's the goal. But when you got the folks that don't want to be successful, I mean, it's just a matter of like it's just that judicious. Like I couldn't sleep at night knowing I've got guys that are about to reoffend, and there's kids out there, and there's it's like if you're having a bad day, people die. People are molested. People are raped. You know what I mean? It's a heavy burden to carry.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because it's not just that's not theoretical. You're dealing with people who've actually done this, and especially when they're showing the signs like they're about to recidivate, and like the signs are there, especially with a sex offender, but they haven't done enough to get a warrant yet. Like they haven't done it, so you're trying to prevent it before it happens.
But what can you do to prevent it, though? That's what I mean. Like, if someone's showing those signs and you're like, dude, I think this guy's about to go do this again, what steps can you take? Because he hasn't committed the crime. And then can you, like, report to somebody and be like, hey, man, you need to go
really with sex
follow
offenders,
this dude?
With sex offenders, what you're doing, I mean, all the surveillance operations we did would be like building a pattern of life around someone to try to understand what's happening. But honestly, what you're doing, man, is you're trying to build a structure around this person. So you're trying to get their family involved. You're trying to get their counselor involved. You're making sure, anytime a sex offender moves, local law enforcement has to be notified of where they're at. There's like a process. But really, like as the officer, you're trying to get as many people involved as you can and to get them connected and make sure we have all of these people working and watching you, because you know we're monitoring computers, so we had like people would be ordered to have computer monitoring software. So that was the other thing we're doing, is monitoring people's computers, and man, like trying to go through all that traffic as part of the job.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just super overwhelming. But yeah, I mean, getting counselors involved, bringing them in the office, you know, the surveillance operations, like seeing what they're doing, and you're trying to, because these guys are trying. A lot of them couldn't have access to the internet, and that was the big game, is seeing these guys get on the internet, trying to make connections with kids, trying to make connections, and you know, get into whatever it was that they were doing before.
That's a majority of them, right? Everything, a lot of it's online, sex offenses, right?
Yeah, I would say yes. When you think about it, it's hard. You know, everyone thinks, and I understand, because before I had to take a deep dive into sex offenders and dealing with sex offenders, and the deep dive into polygraph and sexual deviance and all of that stuff that comes along with it. A sex offender is kind of like parking ticket to. It's like parking ticket to murder, right? And we look at sex offenders. There's like level 1 to level 4. You've got low grade sex offenders, then you've got really high risk, and there's a lot that goes into that risk. But child porn is just rampant, and
that's like the most of the. Because when I was locked up, I was thrown in a sex offender prison.
Yeah, I'm sure that was.
So when I got in there, they were like, "Hey, dude, just so you know, like this is a sex offender prison," and I was in solitary. And in order for me to be let out in a gen pop, they were like, "Do you have a problem with sex offenders?" And I was like, "Yes." They're like, "Then we cannot release you out of solitary." And so I had to be like, "No, I will, you know, not." You know, but at the time, in my head, I was like, "Dude, these pieces, you know, like these are," dude, they're scum. But what I realized, I was like, dude, these are little nerds, man, like that are just hopping on these sites and looking at kiddie porn, or some of them were just looking at regular porn and then went down the dark path. And you're like, well, yeah, I mean, that's not right. Well, first off, I'm like, you shouldn't, you know, be looking at porn regardless. But I'm like, okay, is that a sex offender, or is that just somebody that went too far down the rabbit hole and then you know didn't and not saying it's right at all. I'm just, in my mind, I was like, sex offender was something different to me. But then there was also ones in there that were like no, you're a legit pedophile.
You think of what you consider like a hands-on offender. And what we would find out, so this is you know, we'll see how down the rabbit hole we want to go. We can go as far as
I got a question.
We can go as far as we want to go, but
this is Dave's favorite topic: children and sex.
No,
right, Dave?
Don't say that.
So like, you would definitely see, like, you had people that were, we'll say, born with an innate attraction to children that was always going to be there, right? And then you have what we saw when you're talking about the child porn thing. Like, so let's say a guy starts watching porn. Like what we would see from a progression standpoint, guy starts watching porn, and eventually, you know, just like anything, like any drug, it doesn't get you where you want it to go. So you need something a little different, a little bit more.
That dopamine hit.
The dopamine hit's not as hard. It's like, I need to do something a little bit more dangerous, a little bit more risque, right? So they start kind of going down this path, and before you get to child porn, they'll go down this path, and the biggest predictor that they're going to kick over child porn is when they start getting into bestiality. So like they'll get into midget porn, and there's like a power differential that people are really attracted to when it comes to like sex offenders, like that power orientation, the control that you can have over another person. So imagine imagine trying to have sex with like a badass black belt jiu-jitsu CEO female, and how that can maybe be intimidating to you versus feeling like you can kind of like mentally and physically dominate another person.
I got you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's a power orientation that shows itself on different levels, but you'll get these guys that are very socially awkward. And a lot of these guys that get addicted to child porn, not all the time, but a lot of them, like you said, the kind of the nerds, like something happened, they didn't have a normal development sexually, and like they're awkward. Like they may not have ever had sex before.
Yeah.
And so
all they know is what they've seen or what they've looked at.
The further that the older that they get, the further that it goes, the more awkward it is, right? Now, again, this isn't every case, but this is an example of like how someone gets going out. So, porn is their only outlet. They don't have a girlfriend. They don't have, like, socially they're weird. So they kind of go down this, and they keep going down this path. And from an evil standpoint, you know, it just like kind of takes you. It's lures you in. Yeah. Once someone gets to bestiality, once they start watching people having sex with animals, it's like something clicks. Of course, we're Christians, so I know that there's levels to this stuff, and but there's something about, I don't know what it is, but there's something that's like unlocked when a person starts being attracted to that. It's like the next step is child porn.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you. I'm on a couple boards where we help guys that struggle with sex addiction, and one of the guys on, I won't mention his name, but I've disagreed with him for a while. He's said that, you can enter into porn and then get to child pornography, pedophilia.
Yep.
And I've always thought, man, I couldn't see it. I'm like, dude, I've looked at plenty of porn throughout, and never once was I attracted to little kids or undeveloped. I feel like it was more of a, but I've sponsored guys or tried to help guys that have gotten into that. I'm like,
it's hard.
Dude,
it's
I don't.
It's hard to wrap your head around it.
Yeah.
To me, it seems like there's something to do with.
There's a spiritual thing attached to it.
Agree.
Because
it's like it's taken away. It's the innocence. There's something I don't know any other way to say it. It's like you're still in the innocence of a little kid. And
I'll tell you something. The worst of the worst that I dealt with, the guys that were producing the content that's being distributed, and the hands-on offenders that were just like, there were guys I talked to. It's like you're having to go on a deep dive. They're coming out of a polygraph, and you're getting all this information. And a lot of times we wouldn't find out what someone had done until after they went to prison for what they were. So like maybe we thought someone was just a child porn guy. Right, they get federally indicted, they get convicted, they go to prison, they come out, they have to do polygraph testing, then we take a deep dive in their sexual deviancy, and that's when we find out, oh, you're not just a child porn guy, like you've been a hands-on offender. That happened all the time, right?
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
There was all kinds. Like we found out guys that had offended on 50, 100, hundreds of times, but they were only on paper they were only and so that's what's so important when someone once they get out of prison and they have to register with the state, they have to go through a series of testing to understand what level of sex offender are you really.
Right? Well, like what kind of threat are you?
What kind of threat are you? And there's so much that goes into sexual deviancy to figure out those threats. So
if you do have someone like that, right, that was just charged with some online child porn, right, and then they get out, and then you're placed in charge of them, and you're like, hey, you're watch over this individual, keep him out of trouble.
Yep.
But then you do this polygraph stuff and all this, and then it comes back like, oh shit, like this guy's been touching people or messing with kids. At that point, can you legally do anything to them because they've already been released?
That's the thing, right? So when you find out about, most states have a statute of limitations on certain like offenses, right? Even like sex offenses. When someone gets out, once they've been convicted of a crime, when they come out, there's basically a disclaimer that's like, you need to be honest with us about everything that you've done. We can't come after you and prosecute you for this, right? We need to know what's going on. Like we need to know where you're at. It's almost it's not.
It's past the statute. Of
it's something about the statute of limitations. I can't remember exactly what it is, but those guys like they come out and say, now anything that happens from, if it's any new stuff, obviously, like that's a new indictment. But any of their sexual history
prior,
and we would go in deep into these guys.
But even then, you got to get them to admit something, or
it's very hard.
You got to get hard evidence to put them back in.
Oh yeah. Usually a lot of times when guys would get revoked, we busted them with a cell phone they're not supposed to have. We busted them with having communication with kids. Like there was one guy we intercepted, like. We had to wear hazmat suits after we pulled him out of the house because we knew he had bed bugs and stuff. But he had multiple phones, and he was literally like, when we got him, he was literally in the process of trying to get buy 2 kids. But that was just a matter of like us seeing the signs and getting just enough information to realize like this is a problem.
Yeah.
Like I said, getting a warrant is one thing. U.S. Marshals would execute the warrants, but we had access. If you were on supervision, we have access to your house at any moment. So part of the thing is like these surprise visits, right? You show up at any time of day, any time of night. You're trying to come in and catch people red-handed, with whatever it is that they're. That's a lot of times we would seize evidence.
Is that the
I'd
stuff
show up at their house at 10:30 at night, like, hey, what's going on? It's like you don't have time. Like it's out. You know what I mean? They're not expecting you to bust in their house at time.
Is that the stuff that kept you on edge all the time. You're like, hey, you probably got so good your gut could kind of tell.
That's exactly right.
And then you're like, okay, do I go to dinner or just chill and watch a movie, or should I go over to that guy's house right now? And
just the sheer volume of what you had to keep up with in that job. I mean, I think they're struggling right now. I just talked to a buddy of mine, David Benefield, who I did a bunch of my edge weapon training with. He's actually he's the chief of the firearms and safety division at FLETC for the U.S. courts. He's going to retire doing that, but he told me that agency's struggling right now, which is one of the reasons I left. But he said they're really struggling. It's like the standards that were coming out from the people in D.C. in the administrative office on how you should do. It's like anything. It's like every 3 or 4 years there's some type of new
pendulum swing.
Yeah, there's like a new thing they wanted to push one way or the other. But it was just so much to keep up with because you're responsible for what's happening with these people in the community.
Yeah.
And but yeah, what I would at least sleep over for sure is the idea, because these people are the idea of having to look a parent in the face or a child in the face, or even worse, like having to recover a body or something under somebody that was under our direct supervision.
Yeah.
Because the community's never going to understand that. How did this happen? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, Brooke, it was, she can tell you, it was such a heavy toll to carry.
I imagine. Yeah.
And we would have, at any given time, 60 to 100 dangerous guys in the state, on ankle monitors and everything else. And like, that was the other thing, the ankle monitors, like, at any time I had to be ready to go out, lead a team. You got to carry a gun everywhere. So it was like I never drank alcohol when I was an officer because it was like at all hours. Mm-hmm. And I was terrified to miss an alert. There was all kinds of standards. There was the Adam Walsh Act of people not responding to location monitor, people cutting location monitors off and then going and killing folks. And so that was a huge burden because you got these guys and there'd be faulty stuff. The electricity would go out, the box would get moved. It's technical equipment, so it would.
Yeah.
But anytime there was an alert, it was like stop everything, immediately investigate. And so, Brooke can tell you, I can't tell you how many times I had to get up at 2 a.m. and drive 3.5 hours in the middle of nowhere to go investigate a potential tampering of a strap. But every time it's like, dude. So I was terrified to miss an alert on my phone because like if I got up, if there had been an alert and I get up and nothing had been responded to, and that person had just cut their strap and gone off, like, man, not only was it my job, but it was that reality of having to live with what did these folks do.
Yeah.
It's basically almost an impossible job to be successful at because you can't stop someone from doing what they're doing.
That's what it sounds like. It's
it's very, very difficult. I've had so many friends that left. I've got friends in the U.S. Marshals, I've got friends that went into other federal agencies after doing the job that we did, and they're like, it's not even. They say we do a fourth, maybe a fourth or a fifth of what the work was in that job. It was a ton.
Hey, what's up, guys? So when I'm not doing the podcast, I'm doing a lot of traveling. I put on training all over the country for LE and civilians. I also travel a lot for my nonprofit, the Pipe Hitter Foundation. And as you guys know, travel, going back and forth can wear you down. But this past year, I have found the antidote. So let me put you on to Aquavita, Destin's premier IV therapy and oxygen bar. This place is owned and operated by a board-certified ER physician with over 23 years of experience, so you know your health is in good hands. Every IV drip is mixed to Board of Pharmacy standards and backed by CDC-level infection control. Whether you're dealing with a fatigue, a hangover, jet lag, stress, immunity issues, or even PMS, they've got custom vitamin drips and boosters tailored just for that. When you go inside, the place is pretty awesome. It puts you at ease right when you go in there. They have comfy lounge chairs, which are perfect for singles or couples, full group sessions. And you can even book the whole space for bachelor or bachelorette parties, race day recovery, or wellness events. While you're in there, they go the extra mile too. They'll give you blankets, sleep masks, earplugs, aromatherapy oxygen, all complimentary. And the best part, every visit includes direct care from the physician and experienced RNs, all focused on fast, safe, and affordable wellness. So if you're in the Destin area, hit up Aquavita. Your body will definitely thank you. What about it has the pay? Is it?
The pay is honestly not bad. I think you start. When I first got in, when I was first offered the job in 2011, I remember thinking this was before the market changed a lot. Yeah. They offered me $50,000, and I was like, when I had graduated college, if you got a job making $50,000, you made it. Yeah. Like back then. Yeah. And so he offered me, they offered me $50,000 when I first started, and I think within 2.5 years I was at $75,000 or $80,000. When I left, I was right at about $100,000.
Okay.
Yeah, I was right at like 96, 98, something like that.
And there's no overtime.
No.
Yeah.
No, we tried to. Yeah, and of all the agencies, we really needed the overtime.
That's what I'm thinking, because
Yes.
you're going over some of these scenarios, like the 3 o'clock in the morning, driving 3.5 hours. You go inspect that. Then are you expected now? Hey, you got to work a full day now.
Oh, absolutely.
See, and that to me, I'm like, you're taxing the individuals that are working for you to a point where they're going to get burnt out.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
We had a the whole time I was in that agency, like for this, even the district I worked in, it was just a revolving door. I mean, I spent so much time training new officers and getting them ready to go, and it took 2 to 3 years to get someone where they were able to operate independently, because the amount, I talked about the skill sets you have to have. You have to be very good at testifying. Mm-hmm. You're writing reports that are being scrutinized by the smartest people in the country, U.S. attorneys, defense attorneys. That has to hold water. You have to be able to communicate very well with everyone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to be able to communicate very well. So, it was a revolving door. Yeah, it was a revolving door. It was very difficult. It was like, it's hard to put 3 or 4 years into someone and then them leave and start over.
Oh, I imagine. Yeah, because then you're like, oh shit, now I got to do this all over again.
Yes. And you were talking about like not getting any like pay, like extra pay. Like, so I worked primarily out of a satellite office, and so in Eastern Arkansas, we did all of our fellow court in Little Rock, Arkansas. So any hearing, period, even if it was just like a detention hearing, or if it was like a preliminary hearing, every official hearing had to be done in Little Rock, which is about 2.5 hours away for us. So, we would have monthly standards. So the officers, you've got, let's say, a caseload of 50 people. Depending on their risk level, you have to hit them up in the field this many times. You have to have done this many drug tests. You try to go out, you spend all day in the field, you can't find somebody. Can't drug test them. They're not showing up for their drug tests. It's like you're still responsible for getting stuff done. So you're always on the clock. It's like every time the first hit is like you're behind the clock trying to get stuff that has to be done.
Yeah.
By the end of the month. It's just basic. Don't worry about all the stuff that's going to happen that you don't have control over. These are just the basic standards that have to be hit. And but like we would drive to federal court. Those of us in satellite office, we'd drive 2.5 hours. We'd get to court, and they'd be like, "Oh, we're resetting to tomorrow." Reset, and so then that whole day is gone. You just lost that entire day. You come back, go back the next day. I spent a ton of time driving 3 in the morning there. I mean, it was like every day was a 16-hour day for me, 17-hour day. And honestly, I don't think our marriage would have survived. We've talked about it several times.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I was the guy, looking back, one of the things that frustrated me, Eddie, was me not seeing everyone else put in what I was putting in. Mm-hmm. But then I realized, like in hindsight, like I needed to do a lot better job of balancing my life. But I cared so much about
you were all in.
I was all in.
Yeah.
I was all in. Yeah.
Yeah, which we have these discussions all the time with people that come on. Like we have, law enforcement and military, and it's the same. It's the same premise every time. Like the guys that join, and they love that job, and that's like what they're passionate about. Yep. Then they're all in, and that job ends up consuming them. Because those types of jobs, if you are putting in 100%, and not everybody is. Yeah. Guess where all the weight is going? On you, because they're like, we know Daniel will get it done, exactly right. And they'll throw it all on you, and then you're busting your ass this whole time, and then your whole personal life is suffering because of it, and exactly nobody cares that that's happening.
That's exactly what happened. And again, a part of that's on me.
We talked about this. I mean,
we talked about it today. I didn't know how to say no.
Yeah.
But I cared so much, and there was so much that needed to be done. I was having to run so many programs and pilot so many programs to keep everything moving, because it was like I wanted officers to have the best training and everything. But yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. It's a common thread among a lot of guys, and no matter what job that you have, when it comes to like protecting others, because I think a lot of guys like us that raise our right hand or volunteer, it's like if we're volunteering for it, then you better believe we're going to be all in. We're passionate about it, and there's a reason that we're doing it. It's just that finding that balance between home life and work life, which is always it's the hardest. That's the hardest part. Man.
And it was hard for when I first transitioned out. I'm sure similar to what you dealt with. Like it's really hard. So much of my identity was wrapped up in that.
Yep.
And I couldn't even I was under so much pressure, and we had so much to do, and I was so busy all the time. I had learned how it took everything I had to make it work. But I was really good at what I did. But I couldn't empathize with like a normal person. Like a normal day's work to me seemed like someone was stealing money. I'm like, this is all you're doing today?
Yeah.
This is all you're doing? Like it felt weird for me when I transitioned out. Like it was weird.
Yeah. I think that was a quote I kept telling my wife all the time. Like, this is work?
Yes.
Like, this is nothing.
Brooke will
you know?
tell you, I was just,
Yeah.
I felt like I was, the first job I got when I came out, aside from, building the training company, I came to work for him, and I mean, I would feel guilty because I feel like I'm stealing money from you, because there'd be some days where there was nothing to do, but he's still paying me. I'm like,
Yeah,
But
but
that's
that's
how-
where
but
you
that-
have
that's the
to
norm.
transition your mind
Yes.
into being like, you know what, this is what it is.
Yep.
I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna go home and spend time with my family, and that's what's been given to me.
Yep.
Like I have now free space to spend time, and that's where like I had to transition, like, and actually be like, okay, this is no longer about me and
Yep.
what I want.
Yep.
It's about what my family wants. I can still do some of the things I like to do, but it's partitioning that and finding that balance, which is an ongoing thing all the time.
It is.
Yeah.
We talked about that earlier today
Yeah.
too. But I took the oath so seriously when I raised my right hand and was sworn in by that judge to protect the citizens and the community from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Like I took that seriously to this day. Like the job that we're doing, the training that you and I are still giving out. Like I still am proactively giving back to the community. Like I still take that oath. Like I never really walked away from that.
Yeah,
Still
you're
take
just
that
doing
very
it in a
seriously.
different
I'm just doing it
manner.
on my terms.
Yeah.
I'm being able to be proactive on my terms.
When you're not holding on to all these other people.
Yeah.
How was there something that came about that brought about that you go, okay, I'm done?
Yeah, there was definitely a specific thing that happened.
How long have you been working now before this thing happened?
So I was sworn in 2011. This was 2018 or 19.
Okay.
7 or 8 years.
Okay.
And I had kind of a skyrocket career. I mean, I became a specialist in 2.5 years. Was a supervisor within 4 years. I mean, it was.
So you pretty much you were a rock star because you're going all in. You're probably getting all these accolades. You're getting promoted.
I basically had a perfect service career.
Yeah.
And from before, so I'm coming up on 15 years of law enforcement at this point total, and I've never in my life even had a written warning. And I've spent my verbal warning, written warning, basically a perfect service. And I put thousands of people in prison, and haven't even had like a complaint of mistreatment of anyone or anything, even from people I put in prison. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And but to answer your question, so I had become a supervisor, and we kind of talked about how much I was giving to this agency. And what's ironic is the chief at the time had literally been having conversations with me about potentially becoming the deputy chief and taking the job of my current of the deputy chief. I think at the time I would have been one of the, if not the youngest deputy chief in the U.S. history in this agency. I mean, I was young. I mean, I was mid-30s. That's pretty young to be jumping up into that level of role. And I had taken on a supervisor role of a satellite office, and we talked about how much turnover there had been. So I took over the satellite office and basically had a group of new officers, which is very similar. I told you, like, knowing your story, and we can talk more about it later, but it was so kind of identical in the timing of how things happened. So I'm trying to get these new officers squared away. I brought them out to the house, and a lot of these, I don't want to. Who we were hiring, in my opinion, the standards started dropping because we had to fill seats.
Yeah.
Okay. And what happened in this agency is there's so much turnover that they would hire people to start doing the job before they got their top secret clearance. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I actually was sworn in August. I didn't get my top secret clearance until November. There was a backlog because of the war going on and a bunch of stuff. There was a backlog of people getting their security clearance, but it had gotten to the point to where it was like 1.5 years, 2 years sometimes. Well, that's a problem. Whenever you're having people come in and have access to that material and do this job,
that they don't have clearance,
and you don't find out that they haven't passed their clearance level for 1.5 or 2 years, they're already doing the job. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of the scenario. That's kind of the climate of where the country's at and what's going on. Is we're hiring people, we're training them, we're putting them on the streets, we're having them do this stuff, and they haven't necessarily got their top secret clearance yet. We've done due diligence as much as we can with basic background checks, but we haven't completely got all in. So I've got a group of new officers that all had worked at the state together, and like looking back, I had a cookout at my house, right? Yeah, I heard you talk about a cookout, and your wife was like, "I don't like those guys."
Yeah.
Right.
She picked up on it right away.
Yeah, so I had a cookout, and Brooke had seen all these people coming in and out. So I've got this new group, and I'm trying to build like team culture. Like I'm trying to get a group of people who are all in like I am, and we bring them out. We have a decent enough time, and there was a new person that was being hired that hadn't started yet, and one of the wives of my officers comes out of the bathroom and is like crying. And we're like, what's going on? She comes to me and Brooke and she's crying. She's like, hey, I just found out the girl that you guys hired that's going to be starting. And she said, I know this girl. She said, she's a problem. She's broken up several marriages. Like, she's a problem. Everywhere she goes, she's a problem. I was like, oh. And so I'm like, oh, this isn't good. You know, this is a new officer that I don't know a lot about.
Yeah.
His wife's upset at our party. And, you know, there was a little bit of drinking involved. And so it's like, I didn't think too much of it. And this person starts. And when she first started, I wasn't the supervisor yet. There was another supervisor in the office. Okay, it was a female. And I'm not going to go into a ton of detail about that, but there were some signs early on that this new officer wasn't probably competent to do the job. Mm-hmm. Like, she probably wasn't the right stuff for a lot of reasons. And things that were coming out of her mouth and things that she was saying, like she had trouble finding the building day one. Like, she was having trouble getting in. Like, we're like, well, that's a problem.
Yeah, it's
like, logistically, you're having trouble starting your job.
If you can't find the place you work,
the federal building in downtown Jonesboro is not big, so
that's a red flag.
Yeah, it was a red flag. So I'm a specialist. I've got my caseload, my job. You know, that I wasn't her supervisor. You know, that wasn't really my job. So this supervisor moves on. I move up to take over the office, and kind of short story long, I kind of found out very quickly, like looking back, I figured out very quickly there were problems, and there were problems that hadn't been addressed, and there were multiple things that were like termination level. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I was actually at a training, so it was a short amount of time. Like, I hadn't even been a supervisor for a year yet. You know, it was months into this. I was at a training in Iowa, Des Moines. It was a really cool training. It was like a stress training where they were strapped up. We were doing a bunch of high level scenarios.
The heart rate monitor.
Yeah. And then they overlaid it with a film, so they're seeing you go through the scenario, and you know you can see.
Yeah, we did the same thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it was a really cool training. I come back, and what's ironic is I was actually probably in the best place mental health wise that I had been the entire time I'd been in the agency. So I was in a place where I was actually finding it much better. Like, I was happier than I'd ever been. I was like, man, I think I can finish this career here. Like, I was actually kind of in a positive momentum.
Yeah.
And I come back from that training, and I'm at the gym. I take the day off because we were gone for 4 or 5 days, and I'm at the gym with Brooke, and I get a phone call from the chief, which is normal. I mean, I have his confidence. I mean, we were just discussing me taking over, being his number 2 weeks before. He calls me and he says, hey, are you where I can talk to you? Or he said, are you somewhere private where we can talk? And I just assumed we were going to go over something that usually is top secret clearance, you know, information on a new indictment that's coming down or whatever. Mm-hmm. I go off to the corner and I said, hey, I'm going to talk. He said, hey, man, he said, I can't believe I'm having to say this to you. And then he just goes into this, like, not rant, but he goes into this speech. He said, unfortunately, you've been accused of, I can't remember what kind of behavior or misconduct. There have been accusations of misconduct made against you. I need you to stop everything you're doing right now, gather up all your stuff, get your computers, get your badge, get your guns, get your tack gear, get everything, put it in your personal vehicle, and drive to Little Rock right now. I'm like, what the hell's going on?
No other amplifying information.
That was it.
Yeah.
So and I'm racking my brain thinking, I've had a perfect service career. I've done nothing different. Nothing's been different, right? The only thing different is I'm a supervisor now, and I've got this new young group of people that used to work together.
Yeah.
That are like here at this office. So I said, am I losing my job? He goes, Daniel, he's like, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you about it right now. He said, you got to come here. He said, I feel like you're going to be able to explain all of this. But I was like, this doesn't sound good. Like, this guy was like one of my biggest advocates.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I look at Brooke, and Brooke saw my face at the gym. I mean, I just went pale white because I mean, you couldn't be any more blindsided. Had no idea. And I'm driving, so I have a 2.5 hour drive, having no idea, like, what to expect. I pull up, I'm bringing all my gear in. I go through the front atrium. So, you know, I have a badge. I can walk into any federal building in the country. Just walk right in. So he tells me to go through the atrium. I've got multiple U.S. Marshals, some of which are my friends that I train with, that are there waiting for me. They take me through security. They kind of parade me around the atrium. I'm like, what the hell is going on? People that, you know, in the Little Rock office are able to look down and be like, what the hell? Like, Daniel's being escorted by I mean, the whole thing was just
a charade.
Oh, man. They were, I mean, it was like, they were treating me like I was going to be an active shooter or something.
Yeah.
And so I get back and I sit down and I'm looking at the chief and I'm just like, you know, he comes in and you can tell he does not want to be there talking to me. I said, what's going on, man? He's like, hey, I've got to pass this to you. So he hands me this piece of paper, and essentially what had happened was there were, I don't know, 7 or 8 things that were listed on there that I had said in the last 4 or 5 months, all of which had been completely taken out of context. You know, it's like if I said, I love God, but I hate, you know, my dog, and they splice that together, and they said, Daniel said, I hate God. You know, it's like the ... says something ... type thing. And I'm reading this, and I'm sitting here thinking, what the hell? I mean, it was basically, you know, stuff. It was basically like saying like I was sexist, I was a racist, you know, things that just make no sense. He's like, I don't understand what's happening. I don't know what's changed in the last 4 months. I said, I haven't changed in the last 4 months. And I'm looking at these statements, and when I read them, I know exactly when the conversations happened, and I could go into detail in the moment. I don't remember all of them now because they were so ridiculous. After I read the first one, I was like, okay, I know what this is.
Yeah.
But I read it, and I'm like, are you serious right now? And, you know, when you have officers, first of all, you know the dark humor associated with with being in that line of work. And, of course, I dealt with the sex offenders and all that. But, you know, before I was a supervisor, these were officers that I had to train. So you have confidential conversations about all kinds of stuff. Like, you think about conversations you have all the time that if someone just decided to go say that you said this, like, dude, anybody can be made to look in a bad light.
Yeah.
But even the stuff that they put on there was so ridiculously taken out of context. It was very obvious a ploy to be like, the reality is I was going to make those guys work hard. But I think the ringleader figured out that, like, right before I got the call, but the flight before I came home and got that call from the chief, I was talking to the deputy chief. He said, when we get back, I've got to talk to you about this officer. We've got to get a report together. We have to have action. Like, you guys, I don't think you guys understand what's been going on. I had just really figured out. And I think what happened is that person realized that I was onto it. I mean, she wasn't stupid. And she was a person who had she was able to have a pretty heavy effect on men. I'll say that. And I think she, first of all, got these guys to believe things that were not true, that I had done or said to her. Like, not done to her, but said to her.
Yeah.
They were taken out of context. And then it was like, then they were looking for stuff. It was like they had to have come together and been like, you know, I don't know how many of them was, 2 or 3, maybe. It might have only been 2. But the way it was presented to me was, okay. I said, well, I can defend all of this stuff. How does this work? He said, well, you're going to basically have to have a hearing with all of the federal judges. So, you know, what I was talking about, there's like 7 or 8 federal judges.
Yeah.
And one of those was about one of the judges trying to make it look like I was being racist towards one of the judges. And this is at a political climate where... this is at the tinderbox. And the whole reason that this is happening is he does not want to deal with what this is going to look like if I fight it, essentially, I think is what the reality was. So I said, well, what happens if I fight this? I said, I said, I'm happy to testify and to go through this entire thing and clear my name. And explain, I said, did I say some of these things? Absolutely. But I can explain the context that they were said. And I said, what happens when I win? He said, well, you know, some of them are saying that they're scared of you.
This all sounds very familiar.
They're terrified of you. He said, Daniel, I don't know what's been going on these last 4 months. He said, but these people are terrified of you. I'm like, they're terrified of me? Like, are you kidding me? The federal officers are terrified of me. And what's crazy is, like, Brooke knows, like, I was doing everything I can to get these guys raises. Like, I was these guys' biggest advocate. But I was going to make them work. And I had called them, you know. There was a
They weren't terrified of you. They were terrified of having to work.
I think that's most likely
what it comes down to.
I'm not saying that I'm perfect.
No, but...
Right? That there's no perfect leadership. Sure. I'm definitely a much different, you know, leader now than I was, and I learned a ton from this experience. But essentially how it was presented to me was, if you fight this and win it, you cannot go back to that office because they're terrified of you. So we'll have to find a position for you here in Little Rock, which means my wife would have had to uproot her entire business. We would have had to uproot our entire life on a moment's notice to move out to a place to where now I'm having to move. These are officers we still have to work with. They come to Little Rock all the time. Like, how do you? So it was kind of presented in a way. It was like, there's really...
You're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
That's exactly right.
Like, there's no getting out of this.
And for me, and I know that you understand what I'm about to say, the betrayal, not just of the office, you know, those were new officers, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. It was the betrayal to me of the chief
of
and
your
the betrayal
peers.
of the agency.
Yeah.
Of how much I had given all. I had given everything I had to the point where my marriage may not have made it. And had a perfect service record. And now you've got these new group of people who are saying, and you're telling me right now, I don't understand, this doesn't make any sense. I'm like, it doesn't make any sense to me either. That's probably a clue as an investigator that there's something going on here.
Yeah.
But the way that I was treated, and then it's, I didn't have much time to process, and I was so busy, and it's like the way that was all handled, like parading me around, the U.S. Marshals being there, the way it was presented, where it was like, even when you clear your name, you're still screwed. I'm like, well, why would I even go through that process?
Yeah.
Why would I even go through that process just to bring to light? And it was kind of like, hey, this isn't an official record. If you resign, if you want to walk away and resign, like, we'll respect that. This will go in a little chief safe box. This isn't a part of any official record because nothing's really been officially done. And the whole thing was just the political climate we were in. It was just way easier to deal with it. And
So
and I
give you a way out.
I called my wife and I said, hey, there's no way that I'm about to walk away from this career. I said, I'm about to walk away right now. I'm going to turn my badge and my gun and I got to walk away. And she's crying. She's like, baby, I don't understand. I was like, I don't know what's happening. All I can tell you is that I have to make a decision right now. And I said, I'm making a decision to leave. At that point, it was like, you guys don't get to have me anymore, right? Like, that was kind of how I felt.
Yeah.
And so for me, the transition was so hard because there was no lead up. There was no, and dude, they didn't even let me go back into the building. So
Well, the transition's not on your terms either.
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
There was no mentally preparing myself from, like, I'm not leaving on my terms. There was no mental preparation. It was just, my whole life has been this, and I'm thinking about potentially being the deputy chief. I'm running this, and then everything just stopped right now. And I drove home. I walked out, turned all my stuff in, walked out, and just walked away from what I had worked for my whole life. And
Was that 18 years?
15 years
15,
of total,
sorry.
15 years of total law enforcement. Yeah. And I drove home, and we can get into kind of what happened that night because that actually kind of ties into my Christian. That was my low point.
Yeah, I'm
But
sure.
something happened that night that was kind of cool, that ties into my Christianity and some stuff that happened to me 20 years before.
All right, let's get into it.
It was your identity. I mean, that
Oh,
was
yeah.
like,
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's really similar
I was
to
all
yours
in.
or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a similar situation to mine where it was the same premise. Three individuals from the platoon just didn't like me, and they got together, and they honestly they did not perform. Some of them during the deployment.
Yep.
And I think their big fear was that I was going to come back and tell everybody, like, dude, these guys suck, which I wasn't. I was like, dude, it's over. I'm like, and I actually, same thing, went out of my way to help these guys get new jobs or move on with their career. And I think they had this big, misconception. They're like, oh, he's going to, because I was going up into another bigger leadership role.
Yep. Yeah, it's
And-
just like I was looking
Yeah,
at.
and they're like, oh, our careers are screwed because he knows that we're not we're not up to standard.
Yep.
But that wasn't in my mind one bit. But in their they let their minds run wild, and they came up with all sorts of scenarios that weren't true. And same thing, we're like bits and pieces of like stuff that I had said over the deployment that was either dark humor where I was just joking around. But that's also the problem is when it's presented to you in that fashion, like, did you say this?
Yeah.
And you're like,
I wasn't going to deny some of those things.
I did say that, but I was joking. And they're like, but you did say it.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh, dude. So now I'm not allowed to have any conversations or like joke around when I'm doing this job. Like, what is going on here? But when it gets to that point, what people don't realize is you could say something out of jest or like joking around, but when it's read in court, it's not read joking around.
No, that's exactly
it's
right.
like, you said this, and it's like, well, I said something before and after. It doesn't matter. Did you say it? And you're like, yes. And right there, it makes you look like, it makes you look like crap.
Yeah.
Really.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, we'll get into the Christianity thing in a second, like kind of my story, but the last thing I told the chief, and the last time I ever talked to him when he was locked, and he was sick over it because, I was a huge part. I was a huge part of the culture change. He relied on me for a lot. He knew how much I was doing. And he sent me a letter like later and was like, I still can't believe you left, But, and I was actually kind of still loyal to him. I just felt like he was put in a bad position. It took me a little while to be like, man,
It's weak leadership.
Weak leadership.
Yeah.
It was cowardly leadership. But he said, I just can't believe this is happening. I just don't understand what's happening. I said, I can tell you what's happened. And I said the officer's name. I said, this is what's going on. And I said, I won't be here. But what I told you earlier today, I said time tells the truth. It doesn't necessarily tell the truth in the time that you want. I said, there were signs. And I said, before I even came to you about this, I said, good on her. She figured it out. She figured out, like, she made a move. And I said, it's going to come out one way or another. You're going to find out this person. Turns out this person didn't pass her background check. I think when she was in the process of being fired, she ended up suing the chief, from what I've heard. This is secondhand knowledge, but I mean, she made a path on the way out. And the very guy that didn't stand up for me ended up, I think, having to really deal with some issues, but it's like, hey, but looking back,
I wish I could say I feel sorry for you, but I don't. Like, that's the consequences of
the other
your
thing,
actions.
Had that not have happened, I would have never left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think now what happened was I was supposed to leave, and there were probably signs that I needed to leave, but it just, in my logical brain, it doesn't make sense. Like, I could retire at 50. I've already done all this. Like, I would have stayed in that agency till I was 50 and probably wouldn't have been married anymore. I probably wouldn't have made it. But it was almost like that had to occur for the next part of my life to kick off. And what maybe was meant as maliciousness or whatever by that group, they were really doing me a favor at the end of the day, because my life is so exponentially better.
That is such an awesome mindset to have coming through that, because there's a lot of people this happens to. This is not like a 1 out of 100 chance. This happens all the time.
I didn't realize how often it happened, because I had a great service career. I had never been disciplined for anything.
Yeah, and most people don't bounce back. I will say that through our foundation, we deal with people that this happens to all the time. And what I tell people is, like, yeah, we fight for them while they're going through it. But the hardest part is, even if they win, they're done.
Yeah.
Like, that career is over because no one's going to take you back, because it was such a
especially if it gets really out there.
Yeah, and so the hard part is actually trying to get them back on their feet. When even if they won, their identity stripped, they've been betrayed, and a lot of them, it's really difficult for them to get into a mindset where you're like, hey man, your life's not over.
Yeah.
You can find new purpose. This happened for a reason, but I think it takes faith a lot of the times in order to move forward.
That's for sure what got me through it, and kind of the culmination of, like, what happened to me earlier in life to that moment. So we can just get into it if you want to.
Yeah,
we can get into it. So I told you guys I didn't grow up in church. Like, we didn't really grow up in church. We had visited church. I believed in God. I believed in Jesus Christ. Like, I believed in all that, but I was very unfamiliar with church, really the Bible, scriptures. Like, I knew just enough that I believed. Like, I kind of always believed as a kid, but I just, I hadn't been exposed to it. So I was in college, and I was dead set on, I left the house as soon as I could at 18 years old. I was fully on my own at 18, put myself through college, and I started struggling real quick. I found out what adult life was like. Now I did it, but I had seen my dad and my mom struggle financially. I was like, I'm not going to live like this. And I go out, and here I am working 4 jobs, put myself through college, and I'm exhausted. I'm like, man, life's kicking my ass.
Welcome to the game.
It's like, I'm not. It doesn't look like I'm going to do any better, So we didn't grow up in church this whole time. And my parents, after I moved out of the house, they start going to a church. And there was a time where we as kids had asked, like, hey, can we please go to church? And they were like against doing it. So I leave the house. My brother's I'm 4.5 years older than my brother. So my brother starts going to this church, and I didn't even know they were going to church. I come in to see my brother from college one day, and I walk in and I saw him, and it was like, I don't know if you've ever experienced this with someone. It was like there was an aura coming off of him. Like, it was like a tangible, like I could see. It was almost like light coming off of him. And I just looked at him. He hadn't said a single word. I hadn't seen him in probably a couple months. And I just looked at him and immediately knew he was different. I was like, something's different about him. And I start talking to him, and the way he's talking, the way he's carrying himself, he's smiling. He's probably 14, I think, maybe. 4.5. Yeah, 13, 14 years old. Maybe just in high school, 9th grade. And I'm like, hey, dude, what's going on with you? He's like, man, I started going to church. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. He found God, And I didn't know. I believed in God. I didn't really honestly know if my brother did. We didn't ever really talk about it.
Yeah.
So when I saw him, because you got to understand, like, I'm in a pretty miserable, and I'm pretty angry. I'm a pretty angry person from stuff I had experienced in my childhood anyway. So, life is kicking my butt. I've got a lot of kind of what I would consider anger issues, and I'm not happy. I mean, let's just be real. Like, I wasn't happy. I'm like, man, I'm pretty young to be this unhappy already. And I see my brother, and he just looks like he's full of joy. And I'm like, man, I need some of that. So he's like, man, you should really come to church with me. And I was kind of against it. I was like, I was almost against it because my parents were so against it.
Yeah.
And it's like, all of a sudden my parents are in church, and now they're like rah-rah, Christ and here my brother is. So, but I kind of reluctantly went just because of my brother. Like he's the reason. Like me really finding God that day was, I would say my brother got me there. He was kind of my rock, my North Star, I'll say. And it was funny because I go to church with him and he sits on the front row. And this is like a non-denominational church. So it's not a standard sanctuary. You know what I mean? It's like almost like a storefront church. And it's got like, it's got just the chairs and the seating. And I mean, it looks nice inside. It's a church, but it's not your traditional,
like the pews
Catholic
and
buildings. So I go up there and he's like, hey, just sit with me. And I was like, okay. So I go up and we're sitting up front. So like, praise and worship is right in front. I mean, from here to the wall, like we're really close. Well, they get done with praise and worship. I guess the way the church did it was like the kids and everybody would be there for the initial part. And then as soon as the praise and worship would end, all the kids go to the back.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting with my brother and like all of his people, and they all just get up and leave, and I'm just the only one sitting on the front row, and it's just me. This is me. It's like there's nobody in front. It's just me and the pastor, like right in front. And I definitely felt the pull, from God from a heartstring standpoint. So I kind of rededicated my life. Like I would say officially gave my life to the Lord that day.
Was this was the day after? Or when did this happen?
This was.
I'm sorry.
This was like a few days after I had met my brother. Saw him.
Gotcha.
And he
All
said,
right.
you should come to church with me, probably within a week or two.
Okay.
I went to the service, and so he goes to the back. I'm up front. I'm like, oh man. So now I'm just kind of isolated up there, and I'm sure my parents are in the back going, oh man, this is great. But there was like a 3-month period, so I was very, that just like really new, really young, naive Christian, and I really wanted to know. There was still that part of me that really wanted to know. Like, is this real? It's like I believed it, but there were some things I was seeing in the church that seemed off to me. And, but I really drew, like, there was some scripture that says, like, those that diligently seek me will find me. By nature, I'm an investigative person. Like, I want to know the truth about most things. And it was like those, like if you draw near to me, I'll draw near to you. Those that diligently seek me will find me. And I was like, I want to find out how real this really is, because I'm seeing people speaking in tongues. I'm like, I don't know if that's real. I hear people talk about prophetic stuff. I'm like, I'm just getting exposed to like a lot of things, and I don't know what's real and what's not real. And it's very confusing to me. But I want to know, the truth about what's real and what's not real. So I went on this probably 3-month. Again, it was very early with me being a Christian, but I cut my girlfriend out of my life. My grandfather was died of cancer at the time, so I actually moved in with my grandparents to kind of help take care of him. But I kind of isolated myself. I was like, I need to cut everything out of my life, and I want to hyper focus on God. Like I'm going to hyper focus on like diligently seeking Him, and I did. It was like for a 3-month period, man. I don't know exactly how long it was, but it was probably the most tuned in I've ever been, even as we'll say a seasoned Christian, to it's like almost in constant prayer, like all day. Like subconsciously I'm going to school, I'm waiting tables, I'm working, I'm doing that, but God's on my heart every waking moment, and I'm thinking about Him, I'm praying, and I get to the point to where I'm just praising Him, like I do love you, and I want you to make yourself real to me, type thing,
Yeah.
And it got so far down the road that I kind of forgot why I had even really started really drawing near. It just got to the point to where I was just enjoying, feeling like I had a close relationship with God, if that makes sense.
Enjoying the journey.
That's exactly right. So one day, I had a very unique experience. So I'm at my grandparents' house, and at the time I'm living upstairs. And it's a Sunday, so it's in between like a morning service and a night service, and I lay down to take a nap. And the best way I can describe it is, like when someone comes down, like puts their arm under your legs, like if you pick up a kid that's sleeping.
Yeah.
So that feeling of like an arm coming under your legs. So I'm laying down, and I don't know what you would call this, man. I don't know if you call it a vision. I don't know if you call it spiritual. I felt like arms, like I'm laying down to take a nap, and I think that I'm sleeping. So I feel an arm come under my legs, and I feel an arm come under my back, and start like something's picking me up. And I initially was like that internal thing is like fighting, like somebody's grabbing me or touching me. And I just immediately felt this insane calmness. And I knew like that I was safe. I don't know how to explain it except to know that I was safe, right? So I start being picked up. I can physically feel it. Like if you grab me and pick me up, it's no different. Like I physically feel this. As I'm being picked up, I just feel and experience light all around me. all I feel is light. And the best way I can describe it is that it's the most, if you can imagine, the most fulfilling that you could ever feel, the most love, the most fulfillment, the most joy, the safest you could ever imagine. Like every emotion that's positive, I think, that we can experience, I felt in the most extreme way all at one time. And it was like I was surrounded by light, and all I felt was light. And I was just smiling, and I remember thinking, like, I'm in the presence of God. And I'm kind of like, it feels like I'm levitating. Like at first I was picked up, and then it's like I'm kind of levitating, and I'm just surrounded by light. That's it. It's like light all around me. And then I feel something being like wrapped and put on my shoulders, like physically feel like if you were putting a coat on me or something, like I could feel it. And I hear a voice speaks to me and it says, "Do you know who I am?" And I said, "Yes, you're the Holy Spirit." And he said, "Do you know what I'm doing?" And I said, "You're wrapping me up." And just like that, I was back. And I'm laying on the bed, and dude, I lost it. I'm a new Christian, but I know that what I just experienced probably is not normal.
Yeah.
So I'm just in awe. Like, I don't even know. Like, it was, I can't even describe how I felt, except that I knew that I had been in the presence of God. And I go to church. I'm actually late to church because of this. So I walk into church, and like praise and worship has already started. And you know, Jared Hudson, I listened to the podcast that Jared Hudson was when he was on. And one of the things he talked about, and I've talked to people about this, is what's cool about God is like he'll speak to you in a way that you understand. You know what I mean? Like if you're looking for someone else's experience, don't God's going to speak to you in a way that I know you had a very real experience with God when you were in prison. And so I walk in, and I haven't said a word to anybody. And I don't even know what's happened. Like all I know is that was God. Like, or I can't imagine it not being God, right? And I told you I had just understood the difference of like God, the Holy Spirit, and Jesus, like the Holy Trinity.
Yeah.
So it was like asking, "Do you know who I am?" It's like me being able to say the Holy Spirit. Like I was weeks away from understanding what that even really was. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I walk in. Praise and worship is already kind of going on, and this is very unlike me. I'm not a person that like goes up front, does anything. I walk straight to the front. I don't say a word to anyone, and I lay down on the floor like I couldn't get low enough. And I was on the floor crying, and I was just like, "God, all I ever want to be is in your presence. Now that I've felt what it feels like I don't want to experience anything but that for the rest of my life." You know, like it was very, very powerful. So I don't even know how long I'm down there, 20, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever. And I'm literally crying, and I haven't said a word to anybody. I don't even know, how do I even explain this to somebody? Again, I'm a new Christian. My crazy people are going to think I'm crazy. Well, I get up, and I walk back to my seat, and a lady walks up to me and hands me a piece of paper. And this is, to me, the coolest part of this story, because my analytical brain and my logical brain would have worked myself out of, I didn't experience what I had experienced had this not happened. So she walks up to me, and she just hands me a piece of paper, doesn't say a word to me. And I'll open up the piece of paper, and I'm crying, and it says, "You weren't named Daniel by accident. From this day forward, you will have the prophetic gift of Daniel of the Bible." And it specifically said, what I wrapped you in was the coat of many colors. So it said, what I wrapped you in. Because that was my answer. Do you know what I'm doing? I said, "You're wrapping me."
Yeah.
So this piece of paper says, what I wrapped you in is the coat of many colors. And so was the life of Joseph, and the mantle of Joseph, so will be basically the way your life will play out. Well, I have no idea who Joseph is. I have no idea what the coat of many colors is. I don't know any of this, but I know that confirmed that I wasn't crazy. And, again, God will communicate with you in a way that you know. And so, yeah, man, like he made himself so real to me that even if I wanted to deny it, like there's no way I can deny it.
Yeah.
And but it was awesome. So I don't know if you guys know who like Joseph is in the Bible, and the coat of many colors.
Some slavery.
Yeah. So I went and talked to my dad, and I was like, "Hey, this thing happened." And my dad's like, "Hey, this is very abnormal. Just so you know, like this isn't a normal thing. Like that's amazing." And he's like, "Yeah, you need to study this. The coat of many colors. For your listeners, if they don't know, essentially, most people, like even if you don't know a lot about the Bible, most people know that Moses got the people, led the people out of Israel, right? Led the people of Israel out of Egypt from captivity and all that. So when you think of Israel, you had Abraham begot Isaac, Isaac begot Jacob, Jacob became Israel. He had 12 sons. So when in the Bible it talks about the 12 tribes of Judah, Joseph was the youngest of the brothers. And the dad had given him a coat of many colors, which at the sign was a sign of favoritism. Like he was like, hey, I love you the most, essentially. Pissed all the other brothers off, and they kind of came up, they threw him in a well and left him for dead, came back and told dad, like, hey, so, really the story of Joseph, he was betrayed a couple times by the people closest to him, and every time he came back bigger and stronger. And at the end of his life, he had been sold into slavery once and came to the top. He was like Joseph in Potiphar's house. So Potiphar, he became the number 2 at Potiphar's house, was basically accused by the wife of things that he didn't do, was cast back into slavery, went to Egypt, and by the end of his life was the number 2 next to the Pharaoh running Egypt. And the whole reason that the Israeli people even came, like Israel even came, is the same brothers that had betrayed him brought their families because there was a famine. And they came to Egypt seeking refuge and had to come before him.
That's right, yeah.
And when they realized, he looked different because he was number 2. He was an Egyptian at that time and was number 2. And when he yelled at them and they realized who they were, like they said, they all just assumed they were going to die, but he showed grace. And that's how the people of Israel came to be in Egypt. He actually saved the family. Yeah. But so when I look at like what happened to me in that scenario, it set me back that day. So I leave and I'm just completely caught off guard.
Yeah.
And I haven't thought about it's like you guys are now one of 7 or 8 people I've even told that to, because most people don't understand that type of story, right? So I get home and Brooke's with me, and we're at my parents' house, and I'm trying to describe to them what happened. And dude, I'm at my low. I'd probably say it was the lowest point I've ever been at in my life, and the gravity of the gravity of everything has hit me. I don't have a job. I don't have a career. I'm the primary income for us. I'm seeing my wife. My wife is, first of all, devastated to see me so upset. But then there's that natural fear factor for her kicking in, of like, how are we going to pay our bills?
Yeah.
Like, how are we
going to survive?
Yeah. That reality set in. My parents are like, they're just like, I don't understand how this can happen like this. And I'm confused. And my head is literally on the table and I'm crying. And I'm just like, gut crying. I'm just like, I can't believe like this is happening. Like, I can't believe that this is happening. And a text comes in and it's my brother. And I had called him on the way to Little Rock and was like, dude, I don't know what's going on. And I had called him on the way back and let him know, like, dude, I just left. And he's like, oh my God, I didn't know it. He was on his way to the hospital. He was actually checking himself in the ER, but he's so awesome that he knew I was in distress, so he didn't even tell me I'm on the way to the ER. I'm about to die. He had Crohn's disease at the time.
Holy cow.
So he's literally,
mentoring you or
taking care
pouring
of
into
me.
you.
Yeah, not taking, and just. And I can't remember if he was he might have even been in the I don't think he was in the hospital yet. I think he had just left the ER. But a text came in and he said, Daniel, he said, I don't understand what's going on. I don't know what all's happened. He said, but I can't help but stop. All I can think of is the story of Joseph. And so he like verbatim, like writes back to me like what had been told to me before, like on that piece of paper. And it kind of hit me. I was like, oh, like, this, like, this is kind of part of the plan. Like, may even happen again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and it was crazy because I went from being in the lowest point, and in that moment, it was like reminding me, like, hey, whatever's happening is much bigger than you. You need to gather yourself, and you need to trust in me, and you need to be still. And that's what happened. And my wife, and I knew at that moment I didn't need to. We have that natural tenacity. It's like, dude, I can go get a job. I can make this happen. My natural thing was to go make something happen, and I really felt like the Lord was just saying, you just need to be still. Like, things are already in motion. Like, I've got you. This isn't it's a surprise to you. It's not a surprise to me. Just stand by. And the actual physics job that I do right now, like one of my jiu-jitsu students was a world-renowned physicist. I actually ended up coming to work for him for a little bit. I had started DNC Defense already on the side, but I ended up working for him. And then I went from being the most insignificant person in the company to a year and a half later being the COO of a medical physics company. And then we got bought out by another group, and then I was the acting CEO, integrated us in, and through that integration changed the whole way that they did a lot of stuff. They brought me on as a senior leader, and now I'm have a very successful career that pays a lot more money than what I was doing before.
Heck yeah.
And it gives me time, like a ton of time compared to what I had before. It's a normal job, we'll say that.
Yeah.
Right, it's a normal job. But now me and my wife calculated it because I never saw Brooke ever. Like our time together was, and when we were together, I was never really.
You're not there.
I wasn't there.
Yeah.
We sat down and calculated it out. It's like after I left the government, I think if we both lived to be 75 years old, we will have lived 3 lifetimes together with the amount of time we get to see each other had I stayed in the government. Which is just amazing. You know, you think about you can't live enough lifetimes with your partner type
No.
thing. So,
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is an amazing story. And like, it's funny you said, you know, everybody has, and I believe like everyone has their own relationship with God.
Yep.
And he has plans for you, and you can't, we can never fully understand, you know, his plans when they're actually happening. Right.
Yep.
And a lot of the times it's in forms of like ultimate betrayal
Yeah.
and, you know, your job getting stripped away from you. And I find it like listening to your story, how he had already set you up beforehand with the whole thing you talked about, you know, with him rapping, the Holy Spirit rapping
Yes.
you, and you
Yes.
come into the realization
Yeah.
before that even happened, like Christ exists, he
Yes.
loves me, you
Yes.
know, where that's, I think, because the difference between your story and my story is that yours was like, and you're done. Like, you can leave, and it was like a real quick, you're out.
Yep.
And I think since you already had that relationship with him beforehand is why it did not drag out.
Yeah.
He was like, you already know what to do. Where my story, like I was half-assing it. Like I believed in God.
Yep.
I went to church with my family every Sunday, but it wasn't like
That personal.
I didn't
relationship.
have a personal relationship with him. I was doing it out of like, this is the way I was raised, and this is what you do. And and there's good in that as well. But he knew it's like, no, I have to throw you in prison, and I have to put
Yeah.
you at the lowest point for you to even. And that's what my wife says to this day. She's like, it's the best thing that could have ever happened to
Yeah.
you. She's like, I'm glad that you went there, and I'm glad you were by yourself. And she's like, you're a stubborn SOB, and she's like, you would have. And I was the same way. I would have stayed in the SEAL teams for 30 years, and chances are, the marriage would not be what it is, and all that. And so, I find it fascinating, and I also like just you telling the story of that experience that you had, and I completely understand. Like, you can't put into words or
It's hard
describe.
to.
And like, I try to tell my friends and everything. I'm like, who aren't believers or they question it, and I'm like, it's fine, dude. It's fine to question it.
Yeah.
Like we're human.
Yeah.
Like we're men, and
Yeah.
we we're naturally want to be in control of things, but when you're no longer in control of what's going on, you're going to find out real quick, like, that you have nothing, and except for your faith in God, if you have it, and he will bless you, but you have to have faith in him.
Yep.
But I try and tell them my experience, 'cause I had a very similar one, and I've said it before on this podcast, but there's no drug, and I've done them all, and it's like, there is nothing that gave me that the feeling when he finally like came to me and touched me and was like lifted. It felt like a weight was completely lifted off my shoulders.
I believe it. Yeah.
But the level of confidence that you have after that, you're like,
Yep.
holy cow, man! Like, and you're reeling from it because you're just like, what just happened?
All of a sudden, the world seems really small.
Yeah.
And you feel really small.
Yeah.
Like I said, I mean.
But you feel like I almost felt like there's nothing. Even if I was found guilty and I was facing life without parole, I was like, I'm fine. Yeah.
I know exactly what I know exactly what you mean. I mean, when I was laying on the floor, and I was like, all I want to do is just be in your presence. Like, now that I've experienced it, that's it. And no one, it is it's very freeing to know, man, this isn't about me at all. Like, that's the most beautiful thing about this whole thing is none of this is about me. It's all about him.
Yep.
It's all about Christ. And when I say none of this, I just mean like my life period, your life, all of our lives. Like, none of it is. It's all about him. And it's freeing when that weight is taken off of you, that you're responsible to do this and you're responsible to do that, and like you put that on him.
Yeah.
It's huge.
It is.
Peace that passes all understanding.
That's exactly right.
It was same with me. It's hard to describe. You're trying to describe something in the physical world, and it's a spiritual.
Yeah.
It's in the spiritual realm.
Yep.
And so, like, when I try and describe it and not use any Christian language, I start trying to search for words. What happened to me? And I'm like, well, food tastes different. Everything smelled different. Like, I mean, it was. And then I usually come around to the word reborn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I don't know of another way to say it. It's like my life drastically took a shift. Now I was still sinful.
Oh yeah, we
You know,
all are.
We all
but,
are.
like, I was on a different plane then.
I had a guy tell me when I say it was a really cool story, and I think this is relevant to share when we're talking about how God will make Himself. He'll speak to you in a language that you understand.
Yeah.
And there's a gentleman in Waco, Texas, and he was just tough cowboy. And he told me his story about knowing when he knew God was real. He kind of grew up in church, but it was kind of going through the motions. And he told me as a child he had always loved hearing the sound of birds, which is kind of funny hearing this like tough cowboy, like bull rider, talk about how much he just loves like the sound of chirping birds or whatever. But so, and he couldn't cry. He couldn't tell me the story without crying because it was so real to him what happened. But the way God kind of revealed Himself to let him know, just so you know, I'm fully real. He said he was outside one day working. I don't remember how old he was, maybe a teenager, maybe young 20s. And he said all of a sudden, he said he's outside. It's like he's working. He's like all of a sudden, it was like he had superhuman hearing. And he said it was like he could hear every bird within however many miles. He said he could hear like the most crisp. He said it was the most beautiful. It was like that thing came across. It was like he could hear everything. It was like he could hear the birds singing to God. He was like, it was so powerful and so strong. And he was like, God was showing me. He was like, I knew in an instant, God, you're real, and you're making sure that I know. And it was because it was tied to his love of birds, even as a kid. But he said, you know, it's like, how do you describe superhuman hearing? Whatever he experienced was enough that as a 50, 60-year-old man, when he's telling me a story that happened 40 years ago, he couldn't not cry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the important part of it, though, is not super hearing or
No,
being lifted up. The important part
it's
is
Yes.
in your gut and your
Yes.
soul that God is real
Yes.
in that moment.
And until people have experienced it, you're going to be where I was, where you were, where, you know, question. And, you know, like for me, again, with my kind of like investigative brain and wanting to always know the truth, had that lady not knowing anything, brought me a paper that explained everything that just happened. Had that not happened.
That's insane. Yeah.
Had that not happened, I might have not have never told that story to anybody. And for sure, 30 years later, well, 20 years now, 24 years.
Yeah.
I could have talked myself out of, you know, maybe somebody could have been like, well, you know, couldn't that have been like like a random vision?
Well,
or
God
a
also
dream?
probably knew you, like you said, you're an investigative person. He's
Yes.
probably like, that's not
He
going to be
knows.
enough for
It's-
him. He's going to need another clue or another, like,
That's
there you
exactly
go.
right. It has to be something so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And to get me for you know, I think for me to be effective or do whatever it is that I'm called to do, you know, I think you and I meeting wasn't an accident. You know, we talked about that.
Yeah.
It's just amazing how things will line up. But like my goal is just that I have the courage to do what God asks of me. Like there's no question, is God real? Absolutely. For me, it's like there's no question. Now it's just a matter of, as I go through my life and I'm making decisions, it's me and Brooke constantly working together to be like, before we make a major decision, like, do we have peace about this?
Yeah.
Are we seeking God? Is this me trying to make something happen, or
Are we putting Christ first?
is it?
Yeah.
Yes. Are we being like, because God knows what I need more than I do. If you would have left it up to me, I would have stayed in that agency till I was 50. And I probably would have died at 55 from like a heart attack because of the stress. You know.
Yeah.
And when I look at my life now and the people that are in my life, you know, like, because, you know, this is where DNC developed. Like, the people that are in my life, everyone in my life, including my brother's wife, who they just had their first child with, everyone in my life has somehow been a result of me building this company, DNC Defense, and the culture that we've built and the relationships that we built from it, which wouldn't have happened had.
Yeah. Well, so what is DNC Defense?
So DNC Defense, it's a national training company. I originally founded it when I was an agent, like 2004. I think it was 2014, the year that we and Brooke got married. We've always had entrepreneur spirit. My wife has a very successful massage therapy, personal training business, wellness, nutrition, and you know, we talked about social media before. Like I didn't have like any social media presence really when I was an agent, because
This is not
that's
something.
no bueno. Yeah, that's no bueno. But social media really picked up while I was serving, so I was really behind the game, you know, when I came out. But when I had originally established DNC Defense, you know, my brother served. He was an officer with Jonesboro, and we had toyed back and forth with, you know, if we were gonna, you know, I still had a strong relationship with a Secret Service agent that I had worked with and trained for years. We had talked about doing a private security company and, you know, training, and I was like, well, I'm going to go ahead and start a company so that we have the name DNC. It's Daniel Cole, Nathaniel Cole. My brother's name's Nathaniel, so that's what DNC stands for. So I really just founded it, got the LLC started because we had done her LLC, and I was like, okay, well, I need to go ahead and start getting a business done. And I was just running like privates through it, doing private training. But once I left the government, I really ramped it up. And the whole idea, it's a national training company. I mean, we train law enforcement, military, private security. I have a local studio, so we have jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai. We do edge weapon training. We've got a firearms range, so we do tactical, firearms. We train civilians. I work with the SWAT teams. Got a contract with U.S. Marshals. I train those guys monthly. So it really, at the end of the day, if you ask what DNC Defense is, it's a national training company. But like our mission is to train any individual that has the desire to confront evil and the courage to do so, and to make sure that they're successful through skilled violence.
Nice.
At the end of the day, like that's what we're doing. This is, like I say, it goes back to the old thing, like the good versus evil.
Yeah.
And I saw so much bad, and law enforcement's so reactive at the end of the day. You see so many victims, and you see the reality of the impact on the lives. And DNC Defense is an opportunity for me to be very proactive, and not only just giving people the skill set to protect themselves and to protect their families, but to really, like I said, fulfill that mission of continuing to serve law enforcement and to pour into these guys, finding the guys that really want it and get them that information. We got some pro fighters that fight out of our gym. We got some amateur fighters that are coming up. That's not what my goal is. One of the guys, he's 7-0, Chase Mann. He's doing a great job. But just because I followed him his whole career and I've been with him from the beginning, I do it. But that's not, my goal is not to be a fighting gym. It's not, we're catering to kind of anybody and everybody. I had one of my students say, dude, you're like a one-stop Savage shop. And that's what we are. We can teach it all. But that's really
And where's this based out of?
It's in Paragould, Arkansas.
Okay.
Yeah, Northeast Arkansas. The last few years, I spent a lot of time pouring quite a bit into like having a bigger footprint in the state of Arkansas. I was going out to Texas a lot and training departments and officers out there, but it's such a huge distance, like the logistics involved.
Oh, yeah.
It's tough. And I told my wife and I told my brother and some folks, I'm like, man, I said, it drives me nuts that we're in Paragould and, you've got like a world-class training company literally in your backyard, and we're not training any of the local people. So I kind of went on a 2-year deal of, man, sometimes it's hard to break into your hometown. Like it's tough. And but anyways, kind of started that process. Now I'm active. I've been training the Paragould Police Department for about 3 years now, and I do a lot of stuff with the ATOA, which is the Arkansas Tactical Officer Association. We're going back there and teaching in October, and we've been hosting trainings. And the training you may come up for August.
Yeah,
we'll meet several officers. But yeah, that's kind of our big focus right now. Like I spent like 7 or 8 years really pouring in. I took a deep dive into jiu-jitsu, which shout out on the podcast. Congrats on getting your blue belt, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we can talk about me meeting Kyle Pate, out in Dallas. He's my head coach to this day. I was just out hunting hogs in Texas with him and some guys, but I took like a deep dive for about 7 years into jiu-jitsu specifically, and then have been developing my guys. So now I have instructors. I have probably 3 students that are a year away from being brown belt under me at this point, which is really cool. So those guys can, like, they're teaching right now while I'm here with you. They can keep the operations going.
That's just awesome.
Yeah, I've got to
frees you up
to be able to make it scalable. But I had to take a really deep dive into jiu-jitsu. When I built the company, or when I started the gym, we were actually about to leave. So, left the government. Felt like we were supposed to stand still. I come on doing the kind of the minuscule job with Mark DeWeech, was the guy I told you that got me into the field with the physics, but I had started ramping up the training with DNC Defense. But man, we were just done with our area. So I was getting all the stuff like federal trademarks. I got some copyrighted curriculum and stuff for law enforcement. But we were planning on moving to Denver. Like we were planning on moving away from the area. Like I was done. And we had struggled to make connections. I don't know if you guys have experienced this in places you've lived before, but like we were struggling to make like real connections with people. It was like every time we tried to get around real people, like we couldn't make anything stick. Not that we're perfect people at all, but we just couldn't like build that network we wanted.
Yeah.
And we were done, man. Like we had already contacted a realtor, and we were about to put our house up for sale. We were looking at places like Colorado Springs, Denver. Mark DeWeese, who was the guy I was working for in the physics company, he was about to move away from the area, and we went to lunch, and my wife was sitting there, and she said, I'm about to tell you something, and I know you're not going to want to hear it. She said, I almost don't want to tell you, because for years people had begged me to open like a school or start a studio, and I was always against it because I had seen what it was like training for David Hill back in Waco, how fickle people are in training. people say they want to train, then they
Oh,
start
yeah.
training. It's like I was like, dude, I'm not getting in that. Like, and this is a time that makes no sense. We've lost 60% of our income. We have no connections. We don't like the area we're in. We're wanting to move away. We've actively about to put our house in the market, and we're searching for where we're going to move to. And she's like, hey, I think you're supposed to open a studio here. She was very reluctant telling me. And I look at her, and it was like when she said it, I just immediately knew in my heart, like, you're right. That's what I'm supposed to do. And that pissed me off.
Yeah.
Because we were back in that thing where we were going to do what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's what God had for us to do. And so I aligned with her on that. Our hearts were aligned. And, it made no sense because, like, financially, we were in a very risky place. Like, oh, now's a great time to open up
A brick and mortar.
a brick and mortar place that has a 99% failure rate.
No.
From a training standpoint. Like, anyone trying to go into business doing jiu-jitsu, like, it's not a great business model.
It's not.
Right? It's not a great business model. So what I felt in my heart, because I mean, I hated the area. I did not want to be where we're at. And what I felt in my heart was God tell me, not if you build it, it's like when you build it, I will send you very specific people. Like, that's what I heard. And, you know, my thing with Brooke, like, you know, with the betrayal we had gone through, and then I had some training partners that fell out. It was like, it's like, is there anybody worth pouring into at this point, you know? And I told Brooke, I was like, there's only two conditions I'm doing this. Number one, the guy that I had just switched over to my head coach, Kyle Pate, said I need to go to Dallas and talk to them and find out if they'll support me in this. Because I wanted the gym to primarily be jiu-jitsu based, but I was only a blue belt in jiu-jitsu at the time, right? So, like, I had a long way to go still. But I said, I'm not going to open up this gym unless I have his support, because he was, you know, he was my head coach. And I mean, it's hard opening a gym at blue belt. Like, it's a hard thing. I mean, I had been teaching for years professionally, but it's different. Like, you know, I don't care how badass you are at anything. Like, jiu-jitsu is, like, it's a very specific journey you got to go on. And then the other thing is, like, I got to have one person. I was like, God, I have to have one person that will do this with me, that I feel like I can trust, that's never going to betray me, that's going to be worth me putting my time into, where if everything fails, they'll go all the way down with me.
Yeah.
And that's what I was mulling over with, is like, I'm going to do what you're asking me to do, but I don't want to do it, and I don't want to do it here. You're going to have to send me somebody. Literally 2 days later, I meet Lee Grogan. So Lee Grogan's like my number two. He does everything with me. He's my most advanced jiu-jitsu student. He's been doing everything that I do. He's been doing for the last 7 years. He helps me train law enforcement, train the marshals. He actually works with me at the physics company now. I mean, we're just, our lives are just kind of embedded and ingrained at this point. But I met Lee, like, I think 2 days later. My wife was working with his wife. His wife was doing some, like, bikini bodybuilding, and we went to an event to support her, and I met him. And I think within 5 minutes we were talking about God, and I just had that feeling like, holy crap, I think this is the guy. It's like, I invited him over to the house, him and his wife, I think the next day, was it 2 days after? Day or 2 days after. And I sat him down on my porch, and I told him the story that I told you guys. And that was the only person outside of my family that I had ever told that story to. And I said, here's what I think we're supposed to do. Like, I don't want to be here, but this is what I think we're supposed to do, and I think you're the guy that's supposed to do it with me. And, dude, like, in his heart, he just immediately was like, I'm absolutely that guy.
Let's go.
And he was in my studio the next day. We started with turtle attacks, and he's been with me, rat hand man, ever since.
That's pretty amazing.
And we built an amazing, like, we built an amazing culture. You know, I've got, you know, through that process again. My sister-in-law now that we met, she came to us through that. Like, everybody that's important in our life has somehow come to me through this training company. It's unreal.
That's awesome.
Like, it's unreal.
It's all God's plan.
So
That's legit.
If they're around the Arkansas area, or they just want to get in a hold of you in general.
Oh, yeah. DNCDefense.com.
Okay.
Yeah, you can go to DNC Defense. You know, we have a website.
Yeah.
You know,
You're on the gram.
yeah, we are, but not a ton. I mean, I just, you know, me and Eddie are just saying, like, I hate the social media. Like, the social media thing is rough.
Necessary evil.
It is.
Eddie's a social media star.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's a butterfly.
I love it.
Yeah, no, but yeah, no. I mean, you can go to dncdefense.com. But I mean, really, what we do, like, what we love to do is to do, like, specialized curriculum and to travel around the country, and, like I said, do, like, you know, me and Eddie are talking about doing some stuff together. And, you know, I've got different partners across the country that I work with. You know, I work with Mark Childers. He was the Secret Service agent that retired. But yeah, and the thing right now that we're just trying to make a positive effect on our community. And for me, and again, I referenced Jared Hudson. I thought it was really cool. One of the things he said on your podcast is the first thing I had to do was get my house straight. So when I left the government, it's like I want to continue to be a positive force. The first thing I need to do is get my life balanced because my wife has had to sacrifice a lot. So it was like I had to get my life squared away. And then it was like we started building the company, and then it's let me start affecting my local law enforcement. Now we're affecting things on a state level, and then we're reaching people on a national level. But at the end of the day, like my goal is not to make this company as big as it can possibly be. My goal is to train the people that are specifically put in me to train.
Yeah.
And to continue to network on whatever level that he's pushing to perform whatever it is that I'm supposed to do, you know, at whatever level that is. Does that make sense?
No, that's my outlook on it's the same premise. Like I don't have an ambition to like, I want
I'm not trying to build
this big conglomerate. I'm like, and I want, I'm like, dude, I'm just going to keep doing whatever God puts in my path. And if it's right, it's right. And I'm just going to keep marching forward, and whatever happens, it's God's will. And I'm not like, and I think the second that you start putting your little hopes and dreams and you're like, this is what I want, God's like, all right, we'll see, And
it feels like it's cyclical with Brooke and I. Like it's like we'll get really close to like pushing a train of thought that's what we want. And then we realize like, hey, we need to back it up for a second. This isn't going to lead to like, we got to pull back to what is. That's why I say before, like I just hope that I have the courage and the ability to shut up and listen and understand what I'm supposed to do when I'm supposed to do it. And then whenever what is asked of me, I have the courage to do it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I ask him every morning.
And to do it with conviction. Yeah. And I feel like those of us that have had experiences like what you had and what I had, where there's no denying it, like there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's kind of scary to think about, like what that means.
Well, yeah. How big is it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if God showed us what he really had in store for us, we'd all run from it. So it has to be like.
Oh, that's with anything.
I think we all run from it. So it's like, hey, this is ultimately what you're going to do and what I need you to be able to do. And it's like, I'm so far from that, or the idea of that there's no, like, I think we'd run from it. So it's just like these small, like our lives are kind of, broke up into these seasons where we can kind of digest and learn from things, because if he ever showed us what his vision and plan was.
Yeah, we couldn't take it all in.
We can't take it, yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. We're gonna put everything below when we put this out, so people can reach out and find you. And then I'm looking forward, obviously, to doing some work with you here in the future. I know you're here till Sunday.
Yep. We'll be here
so I know we'll get
fights.
Well, we'll get the fight Saturday for sure.
Yep.
I got him. Dave, are you gonna show up?
I'm gonna show up.
All right, I'm gonna hold you to that, dude.
Yeah.
You got to stay up late.
I'm gonna have to on that one.
We're gonna get the mats out, do some jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, we can get the mats out sometime this week. Do some rolling.
Yeah, let's do it
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, dude, it was awesome having you on, man. Like I said, you have an amazing story. Your mindset is extraordinary. I mean, like I told you, man. Like I deal with people that go through this all the time, and to have that type of mindset where you're like, okay, I'm gonna make lemons, or lemonade out of lemons, and all because of God. That, I mean, it shows. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of people that get stuck, and they stay stuck.
I hate that.
Yeah, it does.
And again, even I hate social media. So even if someone listening to this, if it helps them get out of that rut, or reinforces their relationship with God, or encourages them to really seek God diligently. It's like, test him; he'll prove it to you.
Yeah.
If you really seek him, like, you will find him. Like, it will happen. But like when I heard your story, Brooke saw me kind of go through this process, because for several years, like, there was no closure for me. It was just like, I'm just moving on with my life. I had a few officers that actually left that agency and that I stayed friends with, but there was never really like a closure. There was never a.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
There was no, so I just kind of moved on, and I saw your story. I saw Brad Gary's. Is it Bradley Gary?
Yep.
Bradley. I saw his story, and there was someone else I can't think of at the moment, but I remember watching that and feeling like, oh man, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And it was alarming to me how often it happened across the whole government. Like, you were in the military, mine was in federal law enforcement, but like the way everything played out is very similar.
Same premise.
Playbook,
yeah.
And what it does to you is similar.
Which is why it's also, I know you said you've only told this story to a handful of people, but your testimony is powerful. And I would just say, like, going forward, I'd share it as much as possible. Okay. I mean, you don't want to like, but you know what I mean? Like on platforms or even with your training, you have no idea the amount of people that you're affecting, and they probably won't come up and tell you either, but because I've gotten the same thing where I'm just telling my story, and I'm like, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Yeah, 'cause it's
but
just,
then when you have people like, dude, I was affected, and this is how it helped me.
Yeah.
That's and Dave has seen it, and I'm like, okay, then that is part of my purpose.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I mean, that makes it. I mean, like I said, you hearing your story helped me recover.
Oh.
Well, it's humbling to hear. I appreciate it.
It was a recovery for me, and I think that's what was so cool when I found out last minute that you were going to be at the training.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, man, because I had connected with you most and your story in the sense of, but because of like the betrayal that happened and the
it's very
just
similar.
and then like how they paraded you around and like how I was treated. It hit really home, and what it did is it brought back a lot of feelings that I had suppressed.
That'll still happen.
And it still does. I mean, I still have dreams about it to this day. Like I still have dreams, but yeah, man, I appreciate that. I mean, it was a pleasure to be on here, and I appreciate you guys, giving me the opportunity.
No, glad you guys came down, and you got the rest of the week to enjoy the 30A.
Yeah,
some more beach time.
Awesome.
All right, out. Hey, what's up, guys? So as you know, when I'm not podcasting, I'm doing a lot of instructing shooting courses, whether it's from basic to advanced. And the one product I'd love to see people bring to the range is a suppressor for obvious reasons, because when you shoot, you want to shoot like a gentleman. And over the course of my career and also while instructing, I have got to shoot a multitude of different suppressors, and there's only one that I really love that I stick with, and that is elevated silence. I've been shooting that now for over a couple years. There is very little to no blowback. It's definitely one of the quietest suppressors out there, and believe me, I put it to the test. They are made to last. So whether you're a seasoned shooter or new to the game, Elevated Silence has a suppressor to match your needs. Their commitment to quality ensures that each product enhances your shooting sessions, making them more enjoyable and memorable. If you are looking to pick up a suppressor, go to elevatedsilence.com. Thank you, and God bless.